Okay, we are live. How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar. You are watching Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and welcome to the third annual, right? Is that right, Tigereyes? Third annual Tigereyes Poll for DC Omnis. So what this is, in case you are new to collected editions, this is your chance to vote for DC Omnis that have never existed. And it's a lot of fun. It's the third annual. So this means we've been doing it 3 years. Last year, we gave our list to DC Comics, and they are looking at it. And yeah, this is your chance to vote. And you don't get to vote for 5 like you do in the reprint poll. You get to vote for 10 books, just like the Marvel one. So before I go any further, I'm going to let my co-hosts introduce themselves. To my right is
Domovex, near mint condition person behind the actual videos on thumbnails and whatever else Omar needs. This is the second straight year I've been on it. I hope to be on for many more, and I can't wait to talk about DC with y'all.
Yeah, same. And the man who started the whole Tigereyes poll, and I never asked where you got the name, Tigereyes.
It's a nickname from my mom when I was a kid.
She called you Tigereyes?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's adorable, man. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I'm not belittling the name. I mean, that's very manly.
Yeah.
Tigereyes. Who are you, sir?
Just somebody who created a poll and contributing to from what it is grown into from here.
Yeah, it's kind of almost gotten out of hand, right? Like it's kind of crazy these days. But joining us here soon, all the way from New Zealand, is Crisis. And let me make sure that this is right. I thought I had this most wanted. Am I not seeing this right? The 2020. Okay. Tom, we need an Omarverse thumbnail with the creators on it. That would be great. I would like that.
I agree.
All right. Last but not least, introducing themselves is...
Hello, everybody. It is I, Crisis with a K. I might be creating an echo right now. I'm here live from the early morning in New Zealand. And as we know, this continues my lengthy festival of favorite things as we get to talk about all of the possible DC omnibuses. And you can find me on the internet, both on YouTube and at .com at Crushing Crisis.
All right. Now can we get the party started?
I think so.
There's that sound. There's that voice. Okay. I will be sharing a presentation. So let me show you big. I was trying to see if the people to think were on this list. I just want to make sure I got the right one. But just in case, a big shout out to Jim for putting the poll together, and also Taylor for putting the slideshow together. And big shout out to James Abel, who rounded up a bunch of people. And I know that Crisis has people to thank. But
not too many mapping Minties on this one because we've had such a good, clean version of the presentation from the beginning. So this is only the third annual, but I do have to give a special shout out not only to James Abel, but also to Sauron, who's a member of the Omnibus community here on Near Mint Condition, who knows the ins and outs of some minor DC stuff really, really well. So in addition to the folks on the stream right now, he was really helpful in catching some runaway things that wouldn't have made it or that had made it into the wrong place.
Okay. Yeah, so a big thank you to all the people on Discord that helped out with this. And yeah, it's been a blast, but a lot of work to put together. All right. Good morning, Crisis. I hope you're ready, buddy. This is the way to wake up too. All right, the most wanted DC Omnis 2026 edition. Let your friends know. And nothing here. And 2025 results. Crisis, am I supposed to be seeing something here?
I don't know, Omar.
Where?
Oh, you're doing the wrong one. Hold on.
You're not in a presentation that is ready for air, my friend.
I'm going to hold on, Omar. I'm going to send you the link right now. You're looking at the wrong thingy.
Woo! Good save, Omar. Thank you.
Why are we patting ourselves on the back?
That's all I do.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, it's in. This is the one.
How am I looking at the wrong one? Okay. Woo! What a day. Let me move this over here and start sharing. Okay. Slideshow.
There we go.
Okay. So your most wanted DC Omnibus.
Trying to make us all very nervous.
God bless. This is what happens when I do too many videos and I still have an interview to do at 6 o'clock today. Woo! Let's do it.
We're on the clock.
2025 results. Here we go. Wow, look at all those words. Batgirl Cassandra Cain, of course, being the #1 vote that you all voted for. And number 60 was Green Lantern Kyle Rayner. I'm not going to read every one of these. Feel free, by all means, to take a picture and see for yourself. Or just go back to last year's video when we announced it. We always put the top 60 in the description of the video. And we also send the top 60 to DC Comics. On Patreon, we revealed the entire list, though.
The real reveal is if you go back and forth from this slide to the next one, we can see all of the books that have been printed since the end of last year's poll highlighted. Now, it's not quite a third of the list the way we see on Marvel, but you have to think that DC plans their omnibus slate pretty far ahead. So some of the effects of last year's poll, we still might be waiting to see in the 2027 results. But we did get some things that were on the poll last year. We got Superman Exile Aftermath. We got a Batman Bronze Age omnibus, not Neil Adams, but Bronze Age announced. Flash by Mark Waid, Volume 3 came through. We got another Triangle Era book. We got the New Titans by Marv Wolfman, finally pushing into Titans material that has never been collected before. Of course, the second volume of Batman by Tom King. We got a new Hellraiser book. We got a Zatanna omnibus that has the Paul Dini run. We got a Wonder Woman Rebirth omnibus announced by Greg Rucka, Nicola Scott, and Liam Sharp. Of course, then we have Detective Comics by Ram V. We have Batman by Chip Zdarsky, which wound up being a Volume 1. We got Venditti's run running into Rebirth with Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. We got another Justice League Bronze Age omnibus, and we got another volume of Suicide Squad. So we definitely got a solid amount of books that we voted on last year, including quite a number from the top half of the poll.
I also want to add that books like Tim Drake, Red Robin was made into a compendium. We did ask if there was any way to make it into an omnibus, and not right now. That's not in the
this time.
right now. I will also say that there are some books that are coming in 2027 that are on this list, but I will stress the fact that if it's not in the catalog and if it's not solicited, then it will be on the list again for you to vote, because that's the way that we have always done this, and that's the way we will continue to do this. Some people may think that that's a waste of a vote, but this is seriously a way to let DC know that, no, I'm serious. I'm doubling down on this. This is the book I want. And we were also asked by DC to put books that were not on the catalog or officially solicited on the poll. So there you go. 2026 titles. Wait, are we ready to start?
I think we're ready to start.
We're ready to start, Matt. We got to roll out like the Autobots.
Wow, look at Dom. Okay, now we're cooking. All right.
So just to remind everybody, these categories are purely for our organization purposes here on the show to be able to kind of tell you the story in a coherent fashion. This is the order that we will go in. There are a lot, so buckle up. On the actual poll, everything is just alphabetized by title of the book. So if we talk about an Aquaman book on Aquaman, and then we talk about a Batman book, and we talk about an Atom book in that order here, actually on the poll, they will be alphabetized Aquaman, Atom, Batman. So this is purely to help you organize what the categories of books are, so that when you go back through, you can kind of find your favorite character or line and find all of the books that are options to vote. On the actual poll, they're alphabetical. And if you have trouble with looking through 600 and something titles on the drop down of the poll, we understand. There's a page on Crushing Crisis linked from the poll where you can just Control F to your heart's content through all of the titles listed on a single page. Folks, are you ready to dig into these lines?
And I just want to say, we haven't said it yet, right? We haven't said it. I don't know how many times we're going to say this, but we're going to say two things a lot. Number one, the poll is not live yet. If you're coming in later, where's the poll? Where's the link? Not yet. I will let everybody know when to refresh this video. Number two, This is not a mapping video. We're not here to map books. We're not here to argue about books. We think we kind of nailed it down. Of course, there are things we can always do better, and that's why we open it up to you all. Okay, there we go. I get everything out of the way. Are we ready to roll? Because I think it's you and I first.
Yeah.
All right, the events pre-Flashpoint. Woo! The good old days. It's crazy that we don't have a DC Crisis on Infinite Earths omnibus. We've had a box set, we had an absolute edition, none of it collected in an omnibus format. The box set was deluxe edition size, so it is as tall as an omnibus. Invasion, also another popular one because of Keith Giffen and of course Todd McFarlane. Then you have the follow-up to that, Millennium, and then the one I've been waiting for. And if they're doing this in chronological order, we're 4 years away from it, baby. We're talking about Armageddon 2001. All of it. Give me the Alien Agenda. Give me Inferno. Give me the ending, the real ending that was canceled because the internet was interneting before the internet was a thing. The Eclipso Darkness Within omnibus, including the Eclipso series. And Bloodlines, that might be probably 2 omnis looking at that because those were all annuals. The Bloodlines Aftermath. You know, a lot of great characters came out of Bloodlines. And by great, I mean Hitman. And that's right. Anybody else come out of Bloodlines? The DC Events Year 1 annuals and Underworld Unleashed. Why don't you take the next slide, Crisis?
Sure. So then we kind of go through some late 90s and early 2000s events. Of course, DC actually is pretty good from the mid 2000s onward, but there's still a few out there that we could collect. So we've never had a complete collection of Final Night in any format, paperback or omnibus oversized hardcover. Same for Legends of the Dead Earth. That was an annuals crossover. Genesis is another one that we've never had completely collected. The Pulp Heroes annuals, Day of Judgment, Silver Age, which was kind of a throwback event mostly piloted by Mark Waid. One that I'd be really interested in seeing collected all together is Joker: The Last Laugh. We've seen some threads of that crossover into omnibuses. We've never had it all in one place. There could be an Infinite Crisis companion. There were so many tie-in titles from so many different books that you could have everybody's tie-ins to Infinite Crisis and it would sit really well next to your Infinite Crisis omnibus on the shelf. Also, there could be an Infinite Crisis Aftermath omnibus because there are so many series that spun out of Infinite Crisis. So if you're looking for kind of like a complete trilogy of Infinite Crisis on your shelf, you might want to vote for those two. Then there's all of 1 year later, all of the books that kind of started up in the wake of Infinite Crisis after that 1 year pause in storytelling. And then we could have Countdown to Final Crisis. If it's all of the Countdown minis and not just the Countdown series itself, that means that it could just be a volume. There are a lot of those. And then finally, there could be a Final Crisis Aftermath omnibus because there are a lot of series that spun out of Final Crisis. So as we get deeper into the 2000s, it's more like companion books because after 2005, DC has been very good about collecting their major events.
Really quick, let me get a couple super chats. I thought the Crisis box set was standard size. Chat, can somebody check? I don't own that box set, but I really thought it was deluxe. What about Bloodlines 2016 reprint trade paperback? There was a reprint of Bloodlines. It wasn't the whole Bloodlines event, though, because Bloodlines was the entire event through the annuals introducing a new character. It came with trading cards. So that must have been just a 1 or 2 off. And Infinite Crisis is my favorite event. Not that my opinion should matter, but just saying.
I will confirm that Bruce is right. It was standard size.
Bruce is right.
I did not know that.
I always thought it was deluxe. Somebody told me it was deluxe. I never got it, so yeah, sorry. Standard size. Thank you all. Thank you. Okay, events. Let's move on.
We have had a good amount of DC events. DC typically, at least for the 1-2 years after publication of, say, even most recent events like Night Terrors, Flashpoint, we have had those events well collected and they have done a really great job, but we still have a couple of events that have been left out, some for whatever reason you might think of just not being able to get it out on time, or others that are, I'll just say, less critically acclaimed than other events. But DC has been doing a good job of collecting recent events, and we've seen this with the Absolute Power Omnibus. And in that, we do have the Futures and Omnibus if you are a big Batman Beyond fan, or if you like seeing how weekly events are, if you're a big fan of books like 52, Batman Eternal. and you want to see more of what they did in that weekly format, I would definitely recommend, hey, I want to take a shot at Future's End with Brian Azzarello and whatnot. Convergence was the series that some folks, including me, have joked that was printed because they decided to move their offices from New York to Los Angeles and said, hey, we need to do something with Telos and Brainiac and all of these different characters. But if you are interested in not only seeing the main story unfold, but different pockets in time, like the Justice Society of America, Nightwing and Oracle, or some of my favorites in Shazam with Jeff Parker, I would definitely recommend voting that book in. Heroes in Crisis, the event that shattered a lot of folks' hearts, including mine. But if you are a big fan of Clay Mann, Kel Janet, and a couple of other creators, Mitch Gerrits, I would definitely recommend putting it in, as we have not seen it in full omnibus format. We only have the 2 standard hardcovers that collect it. Year of the Villain was the event where Mr. Lex Luthor, a different version of Lex Luthor from Scott Snyder's Justice League, decided to start giving out gifts to everybody. And if you want to see that all unfold from the Year of the Villain one-shot and free comic book day all the way up through the last arc of Justice League, I would definitely recommend doing so. Future State, the supposed 5G turned into a weird amalgamation of different characters, different set times, different creators on those titles. We do not have an omnibus of that yet, but we have a whole bunch of trade paperbacks collecting that, and DCKO, the most recent Joshua Williamson and Scott Snyder collaboration. If you want to see it all unfold, telling DC, we need this now, because it has been one of the biggest events on the block for the last couple of months. Please vote that in.
What, as somebody that has read all of it, Dom, how did it all work out? Is it like every other crossover event, like ups and downs?
I really liked it up until the ending, but it has, I think, more ups and downs. It's actually been one of my favorite events over the last 6 years at DC.
It looks crazy. Like, I wonder how they'll do the licensing stuff, but that is up for DC to
they collected the licensing stuff in the trade paperback, so I'm assuming that we're going to get full clearance too for the omnibus if we ever get one, and that's up to you, the vote.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Also, a notice on the chat about Heroes in Crisis. There were, I mean, Dom mentioned 2 hardcovers. There were enough Heroes in Crisis tie-ins that in addition to the main 9-issue series, there'd be enough for a very normal DC size omnibus.
Yep, indeed. So you got Flash, you got Batman, and Green Arrow by the Hive Mind. If you have read their Captain America, they were on Green Arrow at the time. So if that's something that you're looking for, you want to see it in oversized, that is definitely an Omni to think about and consider.
Is DCKO Omnibus too soon? When do event Omnis usually release post-event?
It's never too soon. We have
at
seen
Marvel, it's never too soon. At DC, what do you think, Dom?
I want to say 1.5 to 2 years typically for some of these omnibuses. I mean, again, we have Absolute Power coming out later this year. It's going to be 2 years from the ending of that specific event. So 1.5 to 2 years is, I think, the main time that we've seen for a lot of these most recent DC events, as far as the timetable is concerned on printing.
Is this David Gabriel's burner account? Let's move on to All-Star Squadron. 1.5. Yeah, Marvel usually is about a year after the big events or so. 1.5 though. And Aquaman. Take it away, Crisis.
All right. Aquaman does not have a lot of omnibuses to his name, and so there's a lot of ground we could still cover. He's got Golden Age material that, given the general size of DC Golden Age books, we would probably need 2 volumes, but we could break into that with a volume 1. His Silver Age material has started to be collected in DC Finest, but we don't have it in oversize. He's one of the main DC heroes that does not have any oversized material in Golden Age or Silver Age. And then, of course, he's got a lot of very famous Bronze Age material that actually, for most people, they would start mapping kind of a hair earlier than the Bronze Age officially starts, in the same way that the Wonder Woman Diana Prince omnibus starts a little bit before the official start of the Bronze Age. And we could also say that that kind of collects a certain number of creators who come back after that 6-year gap in Aquaman having his own title. Then we have post-Crisis omnibus of Aquaman. He doesn't really do a lot in the mid-80s, right before Crisis. And this has stuff that comes before David. One of the big questions on last year's poll is this where things like Atlantis Chronicles would be? And that is the answer is yes, because it's not in the Peter David book. So there's enough. There's like an Aquaman one shot, a miniseries, all those things could be in the post-crisis omnibus, which would fit prior to Peter David. Then we have the Peter David book, but after that, we would need Aquaman by Larson and Jurgens. That would come from 1998 to 2000 following the Peter David book. Then we go on to Aquaman, The New Wave, and Sword of Atlantis. Some people would see them mapped separately, but you'll see a lot of times on the whole, if there's not a really clear break between things that makes two obvious omnibuses, we'd rather you just vote for one thing, could be either, and so they're combined together. Then we jump into the New 52. We've already got Aquaman, Jeff Johns in the New 52, but there's more Aquaman after that. So, and to the side of it too. So Jeff Parker, Cullen Bunn, Jurgens all write Aquaman around that, including a whole second series that Aquaman had. He was actually popular enough to support 2 series in the New 52 called Aquaman and the Others. Then of course we'd have the Rebirth Omnibus by Dan Abnett. That would be huge. So it might be volume 1 of 2. It starts from the beginning, actually the last 2 issues of New 52, and then has all of Rebirth up to Kelly Sue DeConnick. It includes things like the Mara Queen of Atlanta series and Drowned Earth. I love that run, some fantastic art. And then we have the Rebirth Omnibus Volume 2 by Kelly Sue DeConnick, which would be a slightly shorter run, another one with great art. And then finally, kind of all of the Aquaman stuff after that up to 2023, 2024. So Black Manta, Becoming, Deep Target, Void Song. We could call that Aquaman by Brandon Thomas and Chuck Brown, though there are, of course, many other creators on that.
There has to be a certain curse to Aquaman, because Aquaman not only, I think, has 2 omnis, right? But the Silver Age Omni got canceled. It was in the catalog, and then they decided to make him into deluxe hardcovers. The deluxe hardcover of the Rebirth era got canceled. There was 1 volume. At least Green Arrow got 1 volume. Aquaman didn't even make it into solicitations. But it did have 1 deluxe edition with Stepan Sajic's artwork.
Oh,
and I
so
think
gorgeous.
Yeah.
And that was about it, right? Like, and then they were like, okay, that's enough of Aquaman. So hopefully it will get more love. Like, the character, for having 2 movies and being around forever, just doesn't seem to get the respect he needs.
Tell the folks at DC that we do enjoy characters who have echolocation and can communicate with sea beings.
He does more than talk to fish.
No, but you said it, not me. I'm trying to say it the nice way, Omar.
Don't put words in my mouth. I get canceled by the 5 Aquaman fans out there.
As an Aquaman fan, I'm not as big as some of the people out there, but I do feel like he's kind of got an Iron Man effect at DC, where like people like him and sometimes his runs sell well, but after like 1 or 2 low selling omnibuses, DC is just like really shy to try it. So, I mean, hopefully the Peter David one sold really well. It's one of the most notable DC runs of the post-crisis era. I mean, there's a lot of these. I would love to see that Bronze Age one in omnibus. And I love the Rebirth stuff. So get out there and vote if you want to see some Aquaman books.
I don't know if it's got the same.
It's a far leap down from Iron Man.
Yeah. Jeremy Adams is currently writing Aquaman at DC, and the run.
At least Aquaman has 2 omnis so far.
All right.
Okay, let's get into some Batman.
I love Batman. I know that DC loves Batman because sometimes it just feels like it's the only thing for, I think stereotypically anyways, for the last 8-9 years that all we've been getting are Batman. We still got a lot of Batman that needs to be collected, as I think you guys all probably know. And we've seen it collected through Golden Age, Silver Age. We have a Bronze Age omnibus coming up later this year. And in DC Finest, we have seen that they have not been afraid to not only map parts in the aftermath of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and even before Crisis on Infinite Earths, they have been really doing well, I think, on the Batman category. But again, we've got a lot of Batman to cover. So yes, we are kicking it off with the Silver Age Omnibus Volume 3, as we already have not only a Silver Age Omnibus Volume 1, we've got a Silver Age Omnibus Volume 2 releasing later this year that we have seen in the catalog. And again, I mentioned we had Bronze Age Omnibus Volume 1. We want to tell DC we want to see more of Irv Novick and Neil Adams and Dennis O'Neil do their thing. Omnibus Volume 2 is right there around the corner. You got the 1980s, where you have a whole host of creators, including Roy Thomas, Marv Wolfman, Jerry Conway, and later Doug Mensch in the mid-80s, one of my favorite runs of Batman. As we eventually start to see that all tail out, it would probably be a different set. But if you want to tell DC, hey, I want to see Marv Wolfman and Jerry Conway and Roy Thomas write Batman, this is the omnibus that you would want to vote for. We also got a graphic novels for Batman 1987 7 and onwards that you can pick that aren't as of the main Batman lines and stuff like Killing Joke and whatnot. We got the Post-Crisis Omnibus, which would follow the exact mapping of the DC Finest books. Some of my favorite mapping of the Batman line that I have ever seen, and the way that they have also placed it in appropriate reading order. Some of my favorite reading experiences as a comic book fan for me. Legends of the Dark Knight is probably going to end up on the top 10. I have no idea how the vote is going to turn out, but we have been asking for
2 years in a row.
Right. So yes, I anticipate this book being high, and I really would love to see it being placed in oversized format for the first time ever in its full distinct clarity. Shadow of the Bat, same thing. I still cannot believe that we don't have an omnibus of it, but this is your guys' opportunity to make sure, just like Legends of the Dark Knight, that it gets placed in that oversized format. We've also got the Nightfall Aftermath, which would place right between Night's End and Contagion. We have seen DC, I think, do a decent job of some of the 90s books. We still have some of those gap holes that we need to fill in. We also have Batman Chronicles that you can also vote for, Contagion and Legacy, like I mentioned earlier, and the Legacy and Contagion Aftermath. And these are all books that would slide in right perfectly before those No Man's Land Omnis 1 and 2, and the Road to No Man's Land Omnibus as well.
Man, there are like 3 of my votes here on this slide alone. Like that Post-Crisis Batman Omnibus that's Man of Steel Omnibus material. Yeah. That's the one. That's your Max Allan Collins. That's your Jim Starlin. That's your Mike W. Barr. That's my childhood Batman stuff. So of course I want that. I want Legends of the Dark Knight. And Legends is, I haven't talked to Crisis about this, but I'd love to do a like mapping Batman video where we talk about this stuff, because Legends of the Dark Knight starts off as here's Batman in the past, right? And then later on, because of crossovers, Legends of the Dark Knight is like, okay, maybe not so much more in the past. Now this is Batman here and crossing over with the rest of the Bat family. Shadow of the Bat kind of was like that too. It kind of stood alone, and then crossovers brought it in. But man, Contagion Legacy, baby, that has one of my favorite storylines, and probably Legacy is my favorite event crossover for Batman. I love that story.
And something to say is like we had to use some amount of moderation here, because we could have really gone in to the level that some people would want us to go in on something like X-Men and map out we could have did the Doug Munch ones like as their own too, but we're also trying to play by the rules of how DC tends to map things. Even putting the Batman in the 80s one here is like, would they really switch to an 80s label when we've seen other lines like Justice League get into the 80s with Bronze Age? But we wanted to give you a little bit of play to kind of vote for something closer to the creator runs that you want. But to your point, Omar, like, would Shadow of the Bat be its own omnibus, or would it just be integrated with the rest of the line? We're not far enough into the DC Finest to know how they're going to handle that. I kind of like the idea of Shadow of the Bat as its own omnibus, because it's almost all Alan Grant, right? Like the whole thing. Yeah. But it might work just as well integrated with the rest of the line. And Legends of the Dark Knight, like you point out, like it doesn't always integrate with the rest of the line. So should that be its own omnibus, especially because people are so obsessed with it? We kind of tried to give you enough choices you could express your own artistic decisions on where you as a voter see the omnibus line being mapped.
I look at this slide, and this is one of the times that I get jealous of people working in the collected editions department. I look at this and go, oh my God, what I would love to sit there and have not so much a debate, but more of like, this is why we need to do this now instead of this. And how do you even pick a Batman book from here? Like, if you're like, okay, we can only do 2 this year. Oh my gosh, like, forget it. Yeah, that would be so awesome. I really want an Omni of Wonder Woman Earth 1 by Grant Morrison. Well, we do have that, so you can vote. We'll get to the Earth 1 stuff here in a little bit. Dark Wolverine. Let's move on to the next slide, though, because we're not done with Batman.
We're not done because
we're not even done with pre-Flashpoint Batman, Dom.
No, because Batman, as many of you may know, 85 years old and counting. I mean, that's a crazy time to be alive for one specific character. And we ended the last slide off in the mid-90s. We're going to kick it off right in 2000s. We have seen Batman Gotham Knights material printed in other omnibuses and also other collections before, but never as a full standout standalone omnibus volume, and you finally get a chance to do it here. We thought that maybe you can put it all into one, but man, I think doing it in a 2-volume set would be better, and I agree with that mapping. And you get a whole bunch of creators who worked on that material as well. You have Batman New Gotham by Rucka and Brubaker, which has been previously collected in thinner trade paperbacks. I believe there were 4 of them, and I thought about, man, you know what? Those look great on my comic book shelf. I didn't pull the trigger quick enough to get them, and they have been out of print for a while, but this could be your shot to see what Sean Martinborough and Greg Rucka brought onto the Batman mythos with a specific omnibus like that, fitting in again between No Man's Land and Murder Fugitive. We also have the Batman Road to War Games by Brubaker, Azzarello, and a whole different host of other creators. We have seen the War Games omnibus, an omnibus that I had the pleasure of talking about last year when it dropped. So thank you to Father Omar for letting me do that. But now you get a chance to see all of the things that led up to an unfortunate ending for a particular character that I won't name, but that is the omnibus to vote for if that you're interested in seeing that. We've got the 1 year later Detective Comics omnibus, which is the, if you want to even call it, yes, this is a gapless Paul Dini omnibus. We've seen DC do creator-centric omnibuses, but if you want to see everything after the fact, with including the face-to-face, this is your chance to get it. You've also got Batman Confidential from the 2007 run and onwards that you can vote here if you are interested in reading that material as well. And we've also split Batman, at least the Morrison and Post parts, into 2. So we got the Dick Grayson Batman omnibus. This is the Morrison companion omnibus. We do not have all of the Judd Winnick, Antonius Daniel, and even the David Hines stuff that not followed, but it was around the same time Morrison was doing Batman and Robin. We've seen Batman and Robin already collect at least the 16 issues like Grant Morrison did. We don't have, say, White Knight by Patrick Gleason and Peter J. Tomasi omnibus. This is the way to get it in. And then we have the Bruce Wayne Returns omnibus. So again, if you have not gotten a chance to see, well, Batman came back eventually from a spot in Final Crisis where there's some people thought, you know what, maybe this guy will never get back, but because it's DC, because Bruce Wayne is Bruce Wayne, he's always going to come back. If you want to see some of that material and collected, this is the omnibus to do that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, another wonderful slide. If you've never read New Gotham, I envy you, because we are talking about not just Greg Rucka and Brubaker, but also other creators like Brian K. Vaughan doing some issues in there. And finally collecting the entirety of Officer Down. I don't know why that crossover always gets left behind. And it's just a phenomenal freaking era of Batman. So good, especially if you liked what happened in the War Games crossover. If you even like some of that stuff, this stuff is even better. Like, especially when they're doing their own thing. Woo! And Bruce Wayne Returns. Where did he go? Out for cigarettes?
I don't know, but
And then
you'll have
back. I will point out, calling those Morrison companions, it doesn't mean they like fit 1-to-1 next to the Morrison books. It's just that there's, I think that DC rightfully has recollected the Morrison stuff so many times that like people kind of forget there were, as always, multiple Batman titles running through all of those periods. And because the Morrison is the main event, it's probably a chance for DC to do something they don't always do, which is kind of just do compendium. No, I shouldn't say compendium, because at DC that means paperback. Companion style books that just kind of like gather everything together in those periods, because there's a lot of other Batman that's happening to the side of Morrison. Especially because Morrison kind of jumps around. They skip back and forth between different series. Sometimes there are delays. So there's a lot of other Batman to read in that period.
Which would include Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader by Neil Gaiman. That was a crossover between Batman and Detective Comics. So we've never gotten that in. We've gotten it in deluxe, but we've never gotten it in omnibus format. So just filling in the gaps, like Peter said.
You mentioned David Hine, and I was like, that trade paperback is
it's dead.
Gone, man. Like there's stuff that's never been collected either. And it's so weird because this era DC was just collecting everything. I want to answer this question really quick. Do they ever go back and ask still living creators how they would map their runs like they do for Hickman? Yes, which is why sometimes books are left out of a collection. When a creator says, hey, I didn't write this, and I'm not going to say any names. I'm not going to say which book, because it has happened, both at Marvel and DC. And that's why sometimes things are mapped a certain way, and why sometimes people get frustrated. Oh, why couldn't they add this in there? Well, the creator said, no, thank you. I did not write that. So that's why. So yes, they do. I mean, look at DC has an intro just about in every omnibus. Every new omnibus, if the creator's still with us, they have a new introduction. Take it away, Dom.
We still got a couple of ones here. We got creator-centric omnibuses this time. We got Matt Wagner, who worked on Monsterman, Mad Monk. If you're a big Wagner fan, if you're a big Grendel fan, I know that a lot of people who watch this channel are. This is definitely an omnibus that I would recommend to you if you just specifically want to see all of his collected into one omnibus instead of just the random trade paperbacks that have been sometimes even reprinted out for the last couple of years. Sam Keith, rest in peace. If you are a big fan of Max and we like Lobo, different graphic novel secrets, if you are a big fan of Sam Keith, or if you want to say, hey, we finally had a chance to see like what this looks like, we're going to be seeing some of his material in the upcoming Batman DC Finest Extreme Justice. But if you wanted an omnibus format, this is definitely the way to go. Ed Brubaker, some of his earliest stuff, if you haven't been reading, if you've never read Catwoman, he was on Batman for even just a short amount of time, but this is only specifically collecting his earliest portions of Batman, where you had Scott McDaniel on some of those early issues too. So you're getting to see an early look before Ed Brubaker became Hollywood legend lore. And Scott McDaniel as he wraps around some of the art for that one as well. And Scott Snyder, guess what? He didn't necessarily just get his start on New 52. He was also writing books with Kyle Higgins and a couple of other creators too. You have Gates of Gotham, which again, like I mentioned, a co-writing with Kyle Higgins. It was a 5-issue series. And then when Rebirth came around, he and Greg Capullo needed a little break from their 50-plus issue Batman run, 52 issues to be exact. But they he did go back onto the title, All-Star Batman, the whole host of different creators like Tula Lote, John Romita Jr., Declan Shalvey, Jock, and so many different other creators. That is the omnibus. If you are a big Scott Snyder fan, you love what he did in Court of Owls, Death of the Family, or even Absolute Batman currently coming out right now with Nick Dragotta. That is the omnibus that you want to vote for.
And Black Mirror.
It's kind of
gotta put
surprising
Black
to me
Mirror in there.
that the companion doesn't exist, just because the Scott Snyder Batman books are such kind of evergreen sure sellers, and he did so much other Batman material in that period that's some of it is really, really good. I'm kind of surprised DC hasn't like snuck it out there as a third one to sell.
You know what? I'm with the biggest name as he is, like every format available, the one that kicked off the freaking compact editions. Yeah. How have they not done that?
And we've seen DC reprint his New 52 run in so many different formats. We have like an unwrap, we got box sets, we got black and white, we've got the omnibus, we've got 3 absolutes of that New 52 run, and people
buy it up, man.
Yeah,
people
buy it up. That was a run that I grew up with. I'm like, how have they not continued on Passwords after that?
You grew up with that run?
Yeah, that was the first Batman run that I read as a kid.
I wish I had a gift to like dissolve myself, like melt away. Just like that, feeling old.
What do you mean?
I grew up with that run. What? All right. Batman post-flash. Was everybody done talking about pre-Flashpoint? Tigereyes, did you want to add anything to the pre?
I'm good, thank you.
You're good. Okay.
Tigereyes time is coming. He's not just the silent partner this year. We got
I love that you're setting him up. His time is coming. Look, he's drinking water, getting hydrated. He's ready, baby. All right. We are talking about more Batman.
We got more Batman because it's Batman. We got too much Batman to talk about. And again, some of these books I freaking grew up with. We got David Finch's Batman The Dark Knight. If you want to see how White Rabbit came about. And we had 4 different books. We have now seen Batman and Robin, regular Batman, in even Detective Comics by John Layman and Tony S. Daniel. We've never gotten to David Finch's Dark Knight collected in omnibus format. We've only had smaller collected editions prior to that, but this would be your opportunity to get all of what we had of Batman during the New 52 in omnibus format. We have also seen Tom King's Omnibuses of Batman, volumes 1 and 2. Well, Omni 2 hasn't been released yet, but we are going to be getting it quite soon. And a volume 3, man, take us through the course after Nightmares. We got the Fall and the Fallen, and that whole Long Beach arc with the City of Bane coming in and about in volume 3. And that is what I surmise at the mapping. We won't say anything too much more on that from, but we would get an Omnibus Volume 3 if you guys do indeed vote for it. We got Joshua Williamson's Batman and Robin run. I will credit Joshua Williamson for not only fixing Damian, but bringing him back up proper from his Super Sons days after a little bit of a 3-4 year period where he was specifically only on the Teen Titans. He, along with Simone DeMeo and a couple of other creators, brought Damian Wayne from the ground up. And this would be our opportunity to get that in omnibus format, as we've never seen it in that size before. We got a continuation of Urban Legends, which was an anthology title of a whole host of different creators doing some of their specific stories for their runs. You had Tini Howard on Catwoman. You had Chip Zdarsky on Jason Todd Robin. You had, again, a whole host of different creators doing different stories. And we've even seen this in another omnibus that I'm going to be talking about here in just a minute. Batman and Robin by Philip Kennedy Johnson. He was most recently on the title with Javier Fernandez, who also drew DCKO and the Nightwing Rebirth title. So if you are interested in seeing the all-in era of Batman and Robin, that is the omnibus you want to vote for. And we do have 3 trades of it, and it would, I think, succinctly fit into a nice $75-ish omnibus. Batman by Chip Zdarsky Omnibus Volume 2. We recently had Omnibus Volume 1 released about 1.5 weeks ago. So if you really liked Omnibus Volume 1, you want to see what happens in Gotham War, Absolute Power tie-ins, and everything else that comes along with the sort, that is definitely the omnibus that you want to vote for. And Brave and the Bold, like I mentioned, I would not say that it's a necessary continuation of Urban Legends, but what I will say is that if you want to see Batman teaming up with a whole nother character, just like he did in the 60s and 70s and in modern formats and times, that is a book that you should vote for.
By the way, really quick, if you are interested in the Chip Zdarsky near mint condition cover for Volume 1, I have 3 or 4 copies to give away during our giveaway, which is May 23rd. Because I've already promised one to Dom, of course. My wife took one already, and they do come with a signature plate, so it's already signed, and it's pretty cool. And it was really nice of Walt's Comic Shop to send us some copies, but he's really grateful for what we do. And yeah, in case, May 23rd is the giveaway, and it's open to everybody, international waters, whomever. I'll pay for all the shipping because I'm a madman. Just my way of paying it forward. Out of this one, man, I don't know. This is all too new for me. Give me some old stuff. Tigereyes, you like the old stuff or new stuff? What do you want?
Same boat. I'm an old guy.
Yeah, old guy. Old guys unite, baby. This is too new, too modern for me. You got 2020 something. Forget it. Give me the classics. Or no, 2011. I'm surprised they didn't put all of Urban Legends into one omnibus, but I have a feeling that omni would have been 195.
Well, it's also mapped differently because some of the creators, they have their stories split amongst a particular set of issues. It wasn't like, hey, here's one, and then we're just going to write for the set amount of issues. It's split between all the titles, and you'll even see that when you get to Brave and the Bold. Some of those issues, like one writer writes in issue 7 and then skips an issue. Oh, they're back on issue 9, and they won't come back until issue 13. So that's why they're splitting it up into multiple.
Also, those issues were massive, so it actually would have stretched the boundaries of what could have fit into one omnibus.
That's right, because like Matthew Rosenberg and Chip Zdarsky kicked it off, so they're like 2 different stories going on at the same time. Yes, the Beyond stuff will be here.
We'll get to
the table. I don't think we've left much out, and if we have, I'm sure it's going to be some obscure. No, we even have Sugar and Spike, baby. We don't
love Bill Quisevela, Sugar and Spike, man. Inject that into my veins.
Any other thoughts before I move on to the next slide?
No other thoughts
from the panel. Okay. Moving on to Batman Elseworlds. Woohoo!
Now, obviously, there's a lot of different things that Elseworlds could mean at DC. We kind of use it shorthand for like anything that's not main DC Prime Earth continuity. So you're going to see some things that we labeled as Elseworlds that you think of as animated universe. For us, Elseworlds is kind of just a catch-all. So for that reason, Batman Beyond Classic is here. That's the one that was more based on the cartoon. Then we have Batman the Animated Series, The Gotham Adventures, Volume 2. Batman the Animated Series, The Adventures Continue, which we don't have an omnibus. Batman Strikes, which was another animated based series is based on the Batman TV cartoon and Batman the Brave and the Bold animated series omnibus. So that's all animated adaptations. But then in the kind of more traditional Elseworlds sense, we have Elseworlds Volume 2, but DC announced an Elseworlds Volume 1 omnibus, but there's plenty of Batman Elseworlds to keep rolling into a second volume. Batman One Bad Day Complete Saga is another one that is not a traditional Elseworld, but of course it's all kind of to the side of continuity. There's Batman the Dark Knight Saga by Frank Miller. Would we like to have that all in one book? Finally, it would make a pretty thick omnibus. And as many of you in the chat have already said that you would love to see an omnibus all in one place, Batman the White Knight Universe by Sean Murphy.
Which I think is getting an absolute treatment first.
Yeah,
but
some of
probably-
it, but it's
Yeah.
not like a, it's not.
Yeah, it's just White Knight.
comprehensive. Yeah.
It's just White Knight.
Well, I mean, if you think about that, then if we get White Knight this year, we get the second one next year, and then the third one the following year. It'll be a while before they get into the Omni, or you can just vote for it and let DC know how serious you are about the Omni game. Yeah, this is for the most part, a lot of the stuff like the animated series has been collected in Omni format, with the exception, Volume 2, and then the adventure continues. Bat Family, starting with our favorite Batgirls. Tigereyes, you want to take it away, buddy?
All right, so these are the many faces of Batgirl. You have Batgirl Barbara Gordon, the Oracle years, the Omnibus, 1988 and on. You have Batgirl Cassandra Cain, our #1 pick from last year. Batgirl Stephanie Brown. Batgirl Barbara Gordon, the Rebirth years. And then Batgirls by Becky Cloonan and Will Conrad.
Just to add to what Tigereyes has said, we've seen DC do Batgirl Omni specifically for the New 52 run of Gail Simone's, and also one featuring Burnside with Babs Tarr on art, with her back in a brand new revitalized costume, the purple look that I think most people now associate Barbara Gordon with. But we also have a lot of Batgirl that is still yet to be collected. My #1 for so many years has been that Cassandra Cain Batgirl Omnibus. It is one of my favorite runs of all time, and I think that just getting it oversized and in that first furnace treatment that it deserves would be just so nice to have, and for DC to be able to do it, remaster everything and make sure that it is given to it is a book that I think everybody should read. If you are looking for a great family book, if you're looking for a great character discovery book, and a great legacy book, I think that it molds all of that into one, and it's probably why it's going to be near the top 3 or top 1 again this year. Stephanie Brown is also one of my favorite characters ever, and it's also another one of those outstanding legacy books. It's actually my favorite Brian Q. Miller book, and it also deals with Stephanie Brown now dealing with the aftermath of a brand new Gotham that doesn't have Bruce Wayne. And we've seen this collected in 2 different trade paperbacks, but I would love to not only have that all in one, you can even include the Gotham Gazette Dead and Alive issues thrown in there, where we get to see a sneak peek of not only her, but also Tim Drake's brand new status quo in that sort of new Gotham setting after Bruce Wayne passed away. It's got fantastically Garbeyar too. And then, the Rebirth Omnibus. This is, again, the post Barbara Gordon getting a brand new suit in Burnside, and that Castellucci run, man, I not only adore her writing, but it's also, I think, a run that is very, very underappreciated in terms of Barbara Gordon. If you also have somebody who I also believe that Margaret Scott. Margaret Scott is she wrote some of the DC animated universe movies, but she is also disabled, and I just love the way that she sort of brought that lens back onto Barbara Gordon in her completely brand new sort of revival from those Burnside years. So there's a lot of Batgirl here that we need collected, and I think would be great to have out.
Would that include Batgirl and the Birds of Prey?
No, I think we have an upcoming omnibus.
No, because that Batgirl run itself is like 50 issues. The Birds of Prey run.
Oh my god, it lasted that long. And then somebody was asking about Bet Kane Batgirl Omnibus. Where's that? Is there enough material for that to be an Omni?
No, and it's not. There's not enough of it separate from other books, I don't think.
Yeah, because I don't think she had her. I mean, Barbara Gordon didn't really have her own ongoing either, but still, that's just, man. All right, Cassandra Cain, baby, that is the way. Bat Family, Catwoman. Take it away, Tigereyes.
All right, you got Catwoman in her early years, Golden and Silver Age. You have the photorealistic art of Jim Ballot, Catwoman Volume 1. Catwoman by Will Pfeiffer. Catwoman, the new
Hanging out with.
Volume 2, another gem. And then Catwoman, the Rebirth Volume 1 as well.
Photorealistic. Yo, I'm going to use that adjective every single time I talk about Jim Balint's run on Catwoman from now on, Tigereyes.
I cannot wait.
That Balin stuff, of course, coming out in Finest right now, but it doesn't mean we can't have it in Omnibus. We've seen DC several times release Omnibuses almost alongside Finest. We've seen it for things like Suicide Squad. That East End Omnibus would, plug a pretty significant gap because it would get us to the end of the series that East End starts. And then from there, you could jump to Gotham City Sirens. And then we've already got the first New 52 Omnibus. That would be Volume 2. Rebirth, this is one of the more controversial ones on the poll because people were like, just do Joel Jones or push it further than Ram V. We don't actually know what it would have. It's just a Volume 1. There's a number of creators that do like 20-ish issue runs there. And so maybe it would just be 1, maybe it'd be 2. We would just have to see. But if you want to see it start to get collected from 2018 after the wedding, when it gets launched by Joel Jones, that's your vote.
And if you are a big fan of cult favorites, I have to say, one of my favorite Catwoman runs, most recent memory, that Valentine run on New 52 in Omnibus Volume 2. We don't have it in Volume 1, but man, that stuff hits. So if you're a big fan, I would suggest voting for Volume 2 of that Catwoman New 52 runs. Let DC know that we want to see it all fold out and finish.
And for me, my vote will go for the Will Pfeiffer stuff. I like Jim Ballot. A lot of it, Jim Ballot stuff was fun, but the Will Pfeiffer stuff will wrap up that era. Plus, you get Holly in there. And I know not everybody likes it, but I just want it, for complete's sake. Nightwing. Oh, yeah, baby. All right. Nightwing by Chuck Dixon, Volume 1. I know we have compendiums, but maybe we can add something a little bit extra for you to get the omnibus. Plus restored artwork. Oh, my goodness. My favorite era of Nightwing with beautiful artwork by Scott McDaniel. Nightwing by Devin Grayson. Not my favorite era of Nightwing, but still needed. It is a follow-up to the Chuck Dixon era. And then we have what would be pretty much wrapping up the Nightwing era before New 52. So it would be by Jones, by Wolfman, by Tomasi. So
1 year later,
prior to Dick as Batman. Spoilers. Dick gets to play Batman for a little while. And then Nightwing Rebirth Volume 2. So this is the stuff that happens before the Tom Taylor era. You have the Percy run and Scott Lobdell and Dan Jurgens. And we do have a Rebirth Volume 1. So needless to say, this will probably come out sometime. But these are the 3 different eras. We mapped Chuck Dixon to be Volume 1 of 2. And we're not, people, again, just like the Marvel poll, not to vote for a Volume 2. So we just have the Volume 1 in there. Nightwing's my favorite DC character. So, man, there's a lot of good stuff in here. And some not so great stuff that I still want on my shelf. And yes, this is the Rick Grayson. God damn it.
You have one arc in there where he's not Rick Grayson, Omar.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not all Rick Grayson.
#, Forever Dick. Right, Josh? Or Tigereyes? Sorry.
Yep, Forever Dick.
That's right. That's right. Anything add, Tigereyes, to the Nightwing?
I don't understand how Dixon's run hasn't been made into an omnibus, but
we've had 3 different formats that, one old trade paperback, then the new fatties, and then the compendium. So yeah, maybe sometime. Maybe someday. Robin.
It's impossible to not talk about Batman if you're not going to talk about all of the awards that he is put under his belt right next to him. We've already seen DC push through a Bronze Age omnibus and an upcoming DC Finest that's slated to come out later this year. That doesn't mean that we can't get our nice goody two shoes in the very, very tight underpants into the oversized format. We got the Golden Age omnibus, 1947 and on. This would also follow the DC Finest mapping. I would assume if they ever were to do it at that point. And we have also seen Tim Drake, just like his one of his predecessors anyways, Dick Grayson, get into that compendium format, but never into the full omnibus format. Wouldn't it be cool to get Alan Grant and Chuck Dixon and a whole host of other creators in that same treatment? I think it would, and I think if they ever were to do it, follow the compendium mapping, because I love the way that they map Compendium Volume 2. Tim Drake Red Robin, a series that we tried to convince DC to print out an omnibus of. They said no, at least for now, like Omar said. So my hope is that if we ever do get to see those Francis Maniple colors, man, those lovely Francis Maniple colors in oversized, this would be the way to do it. But if you want it on your shelf immediately, there is a compendium that is coming out, I believe, on the 25th of August. Damian Wayne, Son of Batman, and We Are Robin. This is, well, at least the Son of Robin stuff anyways, written and drawn by Patrick Leeson. Some of my favorite stuff as far as Damian Wayne is concerned. Brand new character that also gets introduced in the mix of the Son of Batman limited series, and some tearful moments for me in reading through Damian, continuing to learn more about the world at large and more about his place in the world. Again, the We Are Robin, if you are interested in all of the different routes, you got Duke Thomas even thrown in there. That is definitely one to vote for. And the Joshua Williamson Batman and Robin run. So if you want, again, to just placing this in there. And like I've mentioned earlier, Joshua Williamson, really one of the guys to put Damian back on the map after 3-4 years of a little bit of awkwardness. If that is something that you want to see in omnibus format, please do vote for that.
And just to point out, some things are on multiple slides because they fit into multiple families. And if you're a Robin fan, we want you to see it here. They're only listed once on the poll. So that one's listed under Batman and under Robin because that has a significant Batman run by Williamson. It also has a significant Robin run by Williamson.
All right, real quick, best Robin from the top. Crisis.
Tim Drake.
Great answer. Dom.
Damian Wayne.
Wrong. Tigereyes.
Grayson.
Ooh.
Wrong. Tim Drake. That's the right answer.
No, it's not.
There's only one right answer. It's freaking Tim Drake. Greatest Robin ever. I'm just kidding.
None for Jason Todd.
Or Carrie. Poor Carrie. All right. More Bat Family. Good God. Is the Bat Cow in here? All right. Take it away, Tigereyes.
So Bat Family, we have the Complete Bronze Age series starting in 1975. Hundreds of Earth 2, the Bronze Age, starting in 1977. Poison Ivy's initial appearances from 1966. You have Azrael by Denny O'Neil, then Azrael by Fabian Nicieza and David Hine. The Bat Family Year 1 by Dixon and Scott Beatty, consisting of Robin, Batgirl, and Nightwing, and Batman Streets of Gotham.
Oh my goodness. Poison Ivy's getting a deluxe edition, but this is the classic stuff, 1966, pre-crisis.
And we've already seen some of Streets of Gotham collected in the Paul Dini omnibus, but this would be a more rounded collection if you want more than the Paul Dini written stuff.
And Batman Family itself from the Bronze Age, if you have the Batgirl and Robin omnibuses from the Bronze Age, you do have a lot of that material, but those issues also included material for Hunters that would be in the book below, but for Man-Bat, Joker's Daughter, there are a number of featured stories in all of those. Some people would be very happy to have those each be in their own omnibus line, like Man-Bat. If that's the case, vote for Man-Bat. But if you just want all of that 20 issues of Batman Family all in one spot in one omnibus, then that would be the book for you.
Omar being sexist here and not including Stephanie Brown into that poll. Just like Batman.
My hero's Dan Didio, so I will not include Stephanie Brown. No, I can't. It only lets me do 4. I thought it would let me do more than 4.
That was also the same excuse that Bruce gave to Stephanie in War Games.
Anyway, quit making me out to be sexist. I get enough of that already. And I'm trying to figure out how to move this damn thing, but let me.
Where do people even vote? I'm so confused.
All right.
So just type 1, 2, or 3, or 4 in the chat.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, Batman Beyond by Adam Beechan and Kyle Higgins, starting in 2010. You have Batman Beyond by Dan Jurgens, Volume 1, 2015 and on. Batman Ghostmaker and Batman Incorporated. Batman I Am Batman by John Ridley. Batwing, the New 52 Omnibus. Batman by Andreyko and Bennett from 2013. Future State Gotham by Joshua Williamson. I've been told he's my clone. And I'm not even going to try and say his other name. Gotham Academy. Redhead and the Outlaws Volume 2. New 52 and Rebirth. Red Hood Outlaw, the Rebirth Omnibus, and Talon, the New 52 Omnibus.
This slot has some great stuff. And I know I like the older stuff, but this
Gotham
this slot has
Academy,
some
man.
really good stuff.
Academy.
Gotham Academy is the one, man. That's so good. Wow, look at this. Look at this, man. 37%. Yeah, wow. What's happening here?
Yes.
37.
We don't need Damian Wayne to win, but we just need to make sure that the three doesn't win at the end of the day, folks. Come on, let's go out and vote.
Guys, Dick Grayson is Nightwing, not anyway. All right. Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey, we got a lot of things to talk about. We're also adding Black Canary in here just because she fits with the category. She's also one of the three main Birds of Prey members. When you think about Birds of Prey, you got to add Black Canary in there. So we do have the early years starting from her origin in 1947 all the way up through 1972. And again, we've seen collections like that for Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Why can't we extend it out to one very own Dinah Drake? We also got the Bronze Age Omnibus that follows that really, really cool Arrow and Lantern Omnibus that I'm sure most of you guys have, but we do not have a Green Arrow and Black Canary Omnibus that is also thrown in here. We've also got the Post-Crisis Omnibus. Black Canary, which also would include all of those Action Comics weeklies. We've seen that recently reprinted in the DC Finest Green Arrow collection. I would love to see Sharon Wright's Action Comics weeklies thrown into an omnibus in that format as well. So we are going to kick that off, and that's how you would vote for that. Birds of Prey by Chuck Dixon. We have seen Gail Simone's run collected. We have not had the Phil Noto covers and oversize yet. So if you are a big Chuck Dixon fan, or if you want to see how he started that all up in 1999, this would be your way to vote for that. We've also got a Bedard and McKeever omnibus that would follow Simone. We have some of those issues left out of Simone Omnibus Volume 2 because she didn't write all of that, but I have had plenty of cool conversation with some of those things that have happened in those issues. So if that is something that you're looking in for a gap filler, that is the omnibus that you want to vote for. We've also got the New 52, which would include Katana. This is a completely different line, completely different set of Birds of Prey. We'll just say rules by Dwayne Szerzinski, and that same Szerzinski on the Iron Fist and the Immortal Weapons. Black Canary and Batgirl, this is the 2015 run and pushing onwards. This is what we were at, Omar was asking about with the Rebirth run by, man, I'm forgetting the writer's name, but it had really cool art. It also had one of my favorite redesigns for Black Canary's outfit. And one of my favorite anyways, DC All-In runs, the Kelly Thompson and Lee Romero, Sammy Basri, and Juan Cabal run on Birds of Prey. If you're interested in seeing how Kelly Thompson got her kick in at DC after finishing Captain Marvel, that is the omnibus that you will want to check in on.
And I am stopping the poll here in another 3 minutes. I would love to see the beginning of Birds of Prey collected with the Chuck Dixon stuff that leads into the Gail Simone era, and I really want that whole era collected. So my vote would also be for the stuff that was left out, the Tony Bedard and Sean McKeever era. And I'm glad that you did not forget about Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. So thank you for that. Thoughts, prayers, anyone? Let me get the super chat, and then we can move on to the next slide.
I guess I would just point out one thing. I'll do this super chat, then I'll chime in.
Okay. I'm about 30 minutes behind, and we'll catch up. Flash Bronze Age could be done in 3 books, and Master Lobes 2 would cover 1956 to 2023. That's insane. That's a lot of Flash. That's a lot of reading. But if only 3 volumes, that's not really a lot, though. Go ahead, Crisis.
Something that I don't know that we've said explicitly, but I think you're starting to see represented a little bit in the choices is, unlike Marvel, DC loves printing deluxes, and they will sometimes print a deluxe to avoid having to map an omnibus weirdly. You can see that in Flash, where they did a deluxe of the Miller portion of Flash to fit neatly in between the Wade omnibuses. So if there's something that's exactly in that 10 to 16 issue range, and there's just no other reason for it to be an omnibus, we kind of left it off because by virtue of DC would make it a deluxe, and this is not a deluxe poll. So especially looking at the Chuck Dixon Birds of Prey, the Moore and Hernandez stuff that's between Dixon and Simone, realistically, that's almost certainly a deluxe, and you would still probably need 2 volumes to get through all of Chuck Dixon. We note it here just because it's connective tissue, and we can't just say this fits exactly before Simone, but you'll see a few places on the poll where we very deliberately left off like a 12-issue run rather than try to cram it into something else because it's obviously deluxe.
Okay. Thoughts, prayers, anyone else?
Nope.
Can I move on?
Yep.
You got a few to talk about now, Omar.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, baby. Okay, before I go into this though, I am going to stop the poll. And congratulations to the great God dang it!
Yes! Good job, guys!
It's
Yes!
a tie. What is wrong with you people? I didn't mean to say you people. Sorry, that came out the wrong way.
Hey, all you people.
All you Robin people that love Dick Grayson and Tim Drake equally. Well, good on you all. I guess those are the best Robins. Sorry, Damien. I'm sure
Well,
Stephanie
he wasn't last. He's never last.
I assumed Stephanie or Jaro would have won. How anticlimactic. Sorry, I tried. We did it. Wonder Betty. You should be in here to talk about Wonder Woman with Crisis. All right, Blue Beetle. So, Blue Beetle, The Golden Age, Omnibus, Volume 1, 1939 and on. And then, of course, this era that has not been properly collected, but now we're starting to get into DC Finest, which is amazing. Blue Beetle, Captain Atom, Peacemaker, and The Question, the Charlton era, 1964 and on. Blue Beetle post-crisis omnibus. So this would go from 1986 to 1988. And that is, of course, all Ted Cord. And then we get into the Jaime Reyes era of Blue Beetle. Was created by Keith Giffen.
Yep.
And then post-Flashpoint, Jaime Reyes. So 2011 could include Threshold. But this is really it. I mean, there's not a ton of Blue Beetle. We could have fun and do like a blue and gold type of omnibus.
Mhm.
But honestly, I would either put that into a Blue Beetle or a Booster Gold Omni. Make you double dip because
Commissioned by Dan Jurgens, of course.
What's up, Cody? Oh yeah, man, that stuff is great. That blue and gold stuff. I love both of the characters. And if I were to map a blue and gold omnibus, I would add in issues of JLI. Huge fan of the character, Ted and Jaime. Like that, the Jaime stuff right here, especially from 2006 post Infinite Crisis, is freaking awesome. Anyone else want to add anything about one of the few Latino superheroes? No?
Not about him, but I'll just point out the Charlton years. We mapped that a little differently than we have in the past because we had it just as Blue Beetle and it was pretty slim. As we looked at the whole range of Charlton years, you probably could do them all in one book. And because The Question and Peacemaker actually really don't have that much material comparatively. And Captain Atom and Blue Beetle often were splitting stories in the same issues. So whether that would be 1 volume or 2 volumes, we never know the thinking of DC on that. But we decided to put all the Charlton characters together rather than splitting their votes across multiple books.
So Charlton stuff that's not in the DC Finest. No, I mean, they still haven't collected some of the stuff from Charlton Comics. Deathstroke, the Terminator. So we are looking at a follow-up to Deathstroke, the Terminator by Marv Wolfman, Volume 1, with a Volume 2. And then we have the New 52 by Higgins and Jordan. This is the 2011 stuff. And it fits right before the Tony Danielle. And Dom, could you remind me how long that run went? The Deathstroke New 52 era? Because I don't think it did not make it.
No, it's about like 20-ish issues. It wasn't too terribly long.
They could combine it, and they rarely do this, but they could put all of the New 52 Deathstroke together into one big omnibus instead of making another $100 omnibus, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Deathstroke Incorporated with this Joshua Williamson, Ed Brizin, and Dexter Soy, which follows the rebirth era of Christopher Priest's run.
And that is what you would read before Shadow War. So if you're interested in seeing how, again, Joshua Williamson, Infinite Frontier guy, trying to prop all of these characters up, that is some of the reading material that we would have before that Shadow War crossover.
And I really like that Deathstroke Inc. run, and people have mentioned, couldn't you put it with the other Joshua Williamson stuff? But then it kind of takes the focus off of Robin in Robin's own book. I think it kind of works as his own book, and I really like that group.
Yeah,
I really like that title.
You also get year 1 too, so you got pretty much everything in that Omni solo wise.
Wow, is this real? Golden Age Blue Beetle materials, public domain. I thought it had to be like 100 and what's the ruling? Like 100 and something years old to be public domain. Where does Rob Liefeld's stuff fit into the collected editions? That would be Hawk and Dove, my friend.
Yep.
Which has some really good
stuff. Did Liefeld draw Deathstroke for a little while?
He's the one that kicked off Deathstroke, the New 52 era. Yeah. So it'd be that and Hawkman.
Yeah.
Savage
he's in
Hawkman, baby.
All right, let's move on to everybody's favorite doctor at DC, Dr. Manhattan. No, just kidding.
Alan.
I've grown to be a big Dr. Fate fan as I've researched the poll because I just am so interested in the different eras of him. So Dr. Fate, pretty much, there was a Golden Age version, and then that Golden Age version continues to Earth 2 and has some really cool team-up stories with Batman in the 70s. So you can kind of collect all of that into one without having to get into like All-Star Squadron and all of his appearances elsewhere. He's got plenty of solo stuff. But basically, his Golden Age, you could take all the way through the Bronze Age. Then there is the Dr. Fate by DeMatteis and Messner-Loeb's run, which pretty much we have in that not a finest, not a compendium, not a girl, not yet a woman book that we have in paperback, but we could have it comprehensively in omnibus. Then after that, is just Fate was the name of that book, Jared Stevens and the Helmet of Fate. We have that continuing through 2007 because there's some Jared Stevens stuff in the 2000s. There's stuff with the helmet into the 2000s. And so that would probably be like one tale of the course of the mantle of Dr. Fate. And then he does have a new 52 book. It is not very long, so this would be a relatively slim omnibus. But with all this, you would have all of Dr. Fate collected and would only take probably 4 books.
Yeah, he hasn't had a lot of series.
But I think Omar's favorite version is Hector Hall from 1999 JSA.
You're not really wrong. I kind of do dig that era, but the DeMatteis and Messner-Loeb stuff, I want to see all that collected.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. Plus, the artwork by Gibbs was just killer during that run. It was, and you know what? It's weird because like reading it as a kid when I was younger, I had no problem with it, right? And now it's weird because I'm like, oh my gosh, you couldn't write a story like this. Like J.M. DeMatteis would be canceled. Like a woman that's in love with an underage kid and then like ages him up. Like it's stuff that happens in manga all the time, right? But here in America, my goodness, like the authors would have been called out. Okay, let's move on to Firestorm. Rest in peace, Jerry Conway.
Rest in peace, Jerry Conway.
So, Firestorm. And this is me. The Fury of Firestorm, the Nuclear Man, not available in any kind of collected editions outside of the things that have crossed over with Suicide Squad and the upcoming, I believe, Legends Omnibus will have some stuff there.
It will.
Poorly collected, and that is no fault by DC because there's a lot of things that have been poorly collected, but we're in a new era of DC. This is what I mean when I say, man, those people in the collected editions department are gonna have a blast. Just like, oh my gosh, we have no Firestorm, there's no DC Finest, there's nothing going on. How about a compendium? How about an omnibus? Give us the omnibus. And then Firestorm by Jolie Moore and McDuffie. Very underrated stuff in that run. It's a new Firestorm that happens after the events of Infinite Crisis. And then the new 52 omnibus, which just take one Omni. So really there's not a lot of stuff. They could fatten volumes 1 and 2 up of the Firestorm from 1978 and probably some more from the 2004-2006 era.
If memory also serves me right, I think that new 52 run was also written mostly by Gail Simone. So if you're a Gail Simone fan. Yeah, Ethan Van Sciver was an art. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, they were both working on that book. It didn't last very long either. Yeah, Ostringer's Firestorm, baby. Very underrated character and not collected. Like, I think there's 2 trade paperbacks that feature the character, and that's about it. Woo! The Flash.
All right. So we have Golden Age, Jay Garrick Flash, Flash the Bronze Age, Volume 1 from 1970. The Trial of the Flash starting in 1983, which ran for 2 years. This is the final pre-crisis volume. Flash by William Messner-Loeb's Volume 2. It's fulfilled prior to Wade. Impulse Volume 1 by Wade. I think that was previously canceled, right?
Yep.
Okay. Flash the Fastest Man Alive, also known as Jeff Johns' Companion, 2005. Flash the Rebirth of Wally West, starting in 2016. Flash the Infinite Frontier Omnibus by Jeremy Adams, starting in 2021. And Flash by Simon Spurrier, starting 2023, featuring Dawn of DC and DC All In.
Yeah, some great stuff in here. Lots of at one time, Flash was a character that only got volume 1s and no volume 2s, and now they have followed up, with a volume 2 of the new 50. Did not put Heroes in Crisis.
I forget what the birth of that. I remember talking about it as a group. I almost want to say like Maddie pitched it to us. That it was like, how do you read all of Wally's arc from like the return of Wally through
from Rebirth?
Yeah, I want to say it might be Wonder Maddie's fault.
Woo! But I'm glad that she added Flash Forward in there to kind of
you got to see him get Dr. Manhattan powers, man. Like, how cool is that? Like, you go from hey, cool. I'm back to wow, this is depressing to I am a god. Can't stop me.
The big one for me would be the William Messer Loeb stuff, because that would lead directly into Mark Waid's run. And holy crap, as someone was saying earlier, we have collected a lot of Flash. Like, you could read Flash post-Crisis on Infinite Earths nonstop. There's a weird like era that happens right after Jeff Johns left the book. What was it? It's a Catherine Immonen, I think, is the writer, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Post Infinite Crisis or during Infinite Crisis. That hasn't been collected.
Yeah, the Mark Waid, Roger Cruz stuff also has not been collected either.
Oh yeah, the Wild Wild West and all that.
That's never been collected.
Yeah, not in Omni. So I mean, there is a lot of room for Flash. All right, and moving on to Green Arrow.
All right. Now, we do have a Green Arrow Golden Age Volume 1, which just very recently, I believe, had a reprint. But there's also other Golden Age material. So there's Green Arrow and the Seven Soldiers of Victory. That could be an omnibus all on its own. I do not believe that is in the existing Green Arrow Golden Age Omnibus. And then, of course, we need another Golden Age Omnibus of Volume 2 to finish up that Golden Age material. Then there is plenty of Green Arrow in the Silver Age. He doesn't have his own title, but he appears as a backup in many other titles. And that would collect all of his Silver Age material prior to the Arrow and Lantern period. Then Dom's already mentioned on the Birds of Prey slide, Green Arrow and Black Canary, the Bronze Age Omnibus. Basically, after the Arrow and Lantern period, Green Arrow again returns to being an anthology book character and a backup character. His stories and Black Canary's stories are so tied up with each other that you probably would have to do them all in one book together. And there's quite a lot of them. It's a sizable omnibus. Then we've got some Green Arrow in the 80s and 90s in the form of the two Grell omnibuses. In my opinion, two of the best omnibuses that DC has ever released. But if you want to continue reading Green Arrow from there, you want Green Arrow Connor Hawk by Chuck Dixon, Volume 1, probably Volume 1 of 2. Then we have the Archer's Quest book that was, I believe, last year, Dom, Archer's Quest?
You're correct.
Yeah. So then we could follow up Archer's Quest. And I think a lot of us were surprised that Archer's Quest pushed as far as it did. We thought it was maybe just going to be the beginning of that run, but it actually leaves a perfectly sized Judd Winnick run to follow that. Then following Judd Winnick's run, we have Green Arrow and Black Canary together, written by Winnick and also Kreisberg. Then we have the New 52 Green Arrow, which changes hands for a few different writers. Starts out as JT Krall. We've had a deluxe of the period that's by Jeff Lemire. Could they put it all into one omnibus? Quite possibly. They've seen a lot of appetite for doing other New 52 books. Then Green Arrow in Rebirth, which would be by Ben Percy before he became the Wolverine guy. I actually really love that run. It has some fantastic art on it. It's got a few other authors at the end, but it's a pretty great Rebirth run. And then finally, we have that Green Arrow in the Dawn of DC, first written by Joshua Williamson, leading up to and spinning out of Absolute Power. And then I think just a absolutely sizzling run at the end of that by Chris Condon with art from Montos, who really was a superstar on that.
Couple of these that I would love to see. Judd Winnick's run on Green Arrow is freaking phenomenal. I love it. And I also want to see his Green Lantern collected. But the Connor Hawk stuff that follows up Mike Grell's run before Green Arrow is written by Kevin Smith, because he gets taken off the map for a while during his own book, but Connor Hawk becomes the new Green Arrow. I would love to see that stuff collected. That has never been collected hardly in anything outside of like a crossover with Green Lantern here and there. And that's it. And just in trade paperback. But really, man, that Judd Winnick, oh my gosh. And you include Green Arrow and Black Canary in the aftermath. So you have enough for like 3 books before heading into the New 52. Any other thoughts on the Green Arrow?
I think the Rebirth Omnibus would probably have to collect if we are going to make it, a Ben Percy thing, and then all the creators followed after it, like I mentioned with Hive Mind. You probably also have to collect the tail ending of the New 52 run, because those issues were also written by Ben Percy, so it might just be the same thing like the Aquaman by Dan Abnett where you collect the latter end of that previous series, and then, oh, hey, we got Rebirth. So probably the same thing for Green Arrow.
And that, realistically, we probably could have put volume 1 of 2, because that is a thickie of a run. And if we're going to add anything to it, there's no way DC does it as one book. We haven't seen that appetite from them on modern material.
I'm sorry. Tigereyes, any thoughts on Green Arrow? Are you a fan of Ollie? Or
I do like Ollie. Probably Green Arrow, Black Canary, Bronze Arrow would be what I would want.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Only good part about Green Arrow New 52 was the Lemire Sorrentino stuff. Yeah, they took away his goatee and forget it, man. Just wasn't the same guy. What are we looking at here? Green Lantern? All right. Dumb.
We got a lot of Green Lantern to talk about. The character that got me into comics still has a good portion of his runs pre-Jeff Johns that have been uncollected. And it's nothing against, I mean, Johns got me into comics, but have other books to talk about, and I hope that people vote for. First, we're going to kick it off with all of the Alan Scott material from All-Star Comics and so many different other comics that were printed off during the Golden Age and onward. If you are interested in seeing how this guy is weak to wood out of all things, this is the omnibus that you need to get. We've also got the Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps volume that follows right after Hard Traveling Heroes. I believe that Dennis O'Neil left the title around like issue 130. So we get Warf Wolfman and Joe Staten, who create the Omega Men. If that is something that you are interested in seeing a world that doesn't have maybe a little bit of Dennis O'Neil in it, this is definitely one omnibus that you will want to pick up. We've also got Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, Emerald Dawn with Pat Broderick art and another creator whose name I will not mention. If that is something that you're interested in, seeing the fall of Hal Jordan before he becomes the guy that eventually destroys the city, because God forbid we have good things in comics. This is definitely there that you should be interested in. We've also got Guy Gardner, Reborn and Warrior. If you read Green Lantern Rebirth and you saw how big and awkward Guy Gardner looked, there has a whole entire 90s period where he literally looked like a ravaging war machine pushed to death. It is peak 90s if you ever thought of it. So this is definitely something if you're it is, yeah. If you're a big Guy Gardner fan, it's a completely different look, man. But if you want to see more Guy Gardner, if you want him to have his own omnibus, that's definitely one to vote for. We've also got John Stewart Green Lantern Mosaic, which would include the Green Lantern Corps War. We don't want to leave any Lantern out. If you're a big fan of the TV show, you want to see, well, what was this guy doing again before Hal Jordan decides to ram into Coast City? This is one that should be on top of your poll. And yes, Kyle Rayner, I know a lot of people really, really want to see the Ron Mars and Daryl Banks omnibus come into form, see his awkward relationships with Jade and Donna Troy, saying how this guy can't even paint good art in terms of relationships. This is definitely one omnibus to pick up.
He was a young guy, man. Look, yeah, the door was open to him to be a hero. All these chicks are just throwing themselves at him, so wasn't technically his fault. Plus, man, his relationship didn't start off good at the very beginning.
That's what I said. If you want to read somebody who doesn't have a great grasp of relationships, this is definitely an omnibus.
But that wasn't his force. That was, what's his name? Major Force. He put her in the fridge. You can't say that relationship failed because of Kyle Rayner.
What I love is this opened with Dom being like, Green Lantern's my favorite. It brought me in the comics. And then he just like mercilessly mocked everybody. But John Stewart, you can't really mock John Stewart. But everybody else, mockery.
Any thoughts on this slide, Tigereyes or Crisis? Okay, we're going to move on then. Yes, to Kyle Rayner.
It doesn't stop here because we got post-Flashpoint Green Lantern to talk about. Yes, we have John's collected in Omnibus Volume 3. We have Tomasi and Fernando Pasarin collected in Omnibus Volume 2. But what about all the other Green Lantern books that actually, now that DC has put out the Hal and Powell's Omnibus about to be coming out, and also the Green Lantern Hal Jordan New 52 Omnis by Robert Venditti. We have seen a lot of coverage in due time with this particular franchise. One thing that has not been collected is Kyle Rayner and the New Guardians. Yes, we are seeing a brand new sort of like reinventing of the mythos. You got to have something after John's left, and Kyle Rayner with a different power ring. I won't spoil as to what that specific power ring is, and a brand new relationship with Star Sapphire, Carol Ferris. If you want to see Justin Jordan, a whole other host of creators pen out what Hal Jordan wasn't doing in these specific books, you can definitely check out Kyle Rayner and the New Guardians. The Rebirth Omnibus, man, good cop, bad cop drama with Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. Jessica Cruz, who eventually became one of my favorite Green Lanterns. This is by Sam Humphries, Tim Seeley, Dan Jurgens, a whole host of the creators, Rafa Sandoval early on art. And again, just good drama and some characters that you fall like. I freaking love Jessica Cruz, just particularly mainly because of that series. We've also got the Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps Omnibus. We have Volume 1 coming out later this year. An omnibus that I will definitely be picking up. We need a Volume 2. If you want to have a Volume 2, let DC know that they need to put it ASAP out on their 2027 catalogs. We've also got Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp reinvention again of Hal Jordan with their own 2-set series. So this would collect the first series, the first 12-issue series, the second 12-issue series, and Black Stars, a little interlude in between those two series that would be collected in an omnibus with those two creators. We've also got N.K. Jemisin and Jeffrey Thorne. This would also include Far Sector. So a little bit of tales, not only during that same period, again, where Hal Jordan was being played around with by Sharp and Morrison. This is also where you get to see different creators have their own spin on characters, including a brand new character that pops up in Far Sector, Joe Mullane. And then the Dawn of DC Omnibus, we included this in last year's poll. Jeremy Adams decided, hey, you know what am I going to do? Like, I got kicked off of Flash. Well, they put him on Green Lantern, and he's been on Green Lantern ever since. Zermanico is the main guy on art, but this would also include the Green Lantern John Stewart War Journal series with Phil Kennedy Johnson and Montos, some of my favorite Montos arts. So that is indeed the set for Green Lantern.
And that's why we have such a new book on here. Usually we won't map things like mid-run, but because with the addition of the War Journal stuff, which is so interesting and great art from Montos, again, clearly I'm a fan, it's actually so substantial that you could knock out a Volume 1 right now and like not even be close to where they are currently in the run, because there's just a lot of material.
There are.
And it's got a very clear divider too around, what is it, like issue 19 or 21 when they kind of move into year 2. So there's a really clear break point.
Yep. Thank you, Absolute Power, for making that clear break point.
Yeah.
I want to say that the Grant Morrison run starts pretty normal. You're like, oh, this is pretty normal, standard Green Lantern. I don't know what everybody's talking about. Grant Morrison isn't that cryptic and weird.
Oh, dude, season 2 has some of the wildest stuff.
You're gonna be like, what the hell did I just read?
I had Liam Sharp is a friend of my comic book shops, and I remember just asking him twice because he showed me some of those early panels from season 2 before it was all colored. I told him, like, there is no way that you are understanding anything of what Grant is writing in their scripts, and he's like, that's the fun of drawing for Grant Morrison.
It's nuts. It's nuts. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Okay, let's move on to Green Lantern, because there's other lanterns, not just, that guy. So we are looking at the Omega Man. This is the classic stuff, the characters that are where Lobo first appeared, Keith Giffen, of course.
Yep.
Then the post-crisis on Infinite Earths, which would include Legion and Rebels, and then Green Lantern, John Stewart, and the Dark Stars. I love that stuff. That is the first time I ever saw Travis Charest had a Jim Lee style and then developed his own style. And holy crap, that guy is doing his own thing now. Little slow, can't do a monthly series, but that's okay. Green Lantern Corps, this is the Johns, Tomasi, and Gleason companion. I think this is the one that I called Those Left Behind. Like that.
Those Left Behind. So the Dave Gibbons stuff and the Tony Bedard.
But this is this is so you're not that confused with that title. So now you know this is the stuff that was orphaned from the Green Lantern by Jeff Johns 1, 2, and 3, and the Tomasi Gleason 1 and 2. Rebels by Tony Bedard, a series that's only been collected in trade paperback. And then, I mean, a lot of stuff for Green Lantern has been collected, like Red Lanterns and all of the Robert Venditti stuff. Post-Flashpoint, that would include the Green Lantern Lardfries and also the man, that is a New 52 omnibus by itself, though. And then Sinestro, the New 52 omnibus, which is freaking awesome. And I hope one day we get both of these. and that is by Cullen Bunn. Oh,
I just want to say one more thing on that side.
ahead.
There were we went through a Reddit consultation. It also was on the Marvel Masterworks board where everybody got to put in their 2 cents if we had the right titles on the poll. A lot of people put a lot of thought into how those Left Behind omnibus should be, but it's just such an amorphous amount of material that trying to split it up more is probably not the thing that's going to get it more votes. Sometimes when we have kind of a weird group of material like that, it's best to just keep it together until we get a hint of how DC is going to handle it. Of course, if you didn't want any skipped issues of all, you could be buying the compendiums right now. But if you want a complete omnibus shelf, you probably would need that book in whatever form it would take. So thank you to everybody who chimed in. Even if we did not use all of your suggestions, Omar and Dom and Tigereyes can speak to the fact that in the background, we had some pretty lengthy discussions, especially about that book.
And we even got, DC involved, like to talk about some of these things.
Ooh, I didn't know if I could say.
No, it's fine. Somebody, I'm not going to say any names, but just because we do take everybody's thoughts and opinions into consideration. It's not just the Crisis and Omar mapping show. It never has been.
Unless it is a Crisis and Omar.
Unless it's X-Men, then we got you.
It's a map my X-Man. Don't you get it, Omar? Understand
the X-Men, we get it.
I requested a specific DC phone a friend for that lantern stuff.
Yeah. So I'm glad that we brought it to the table, and we decided to keep it this way.
And if you want to see all 10 lantern rings on that round table, be sure to vote for some of these when we get a chance.
Can we just have a crisis? This is a democracy, Ryan.
There's a whole channel for that.
What is that channel called?
Crushing Crisis.
Crushing Crisis. Okay, and also a website
with a K.
With a K.
With a K.
Also a website. I heard.
Yeah, also a website.
Was that
guides to Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner? Yeah. Oh, now I get to talk about Harley Quinn. Okay. So the first one we have a great title for now because of the DC Finest line. We could call it The Birth of Mirth. This would be unusual because we've seen DC repeatedly collect her early DC animated universe appearances alongside with her early actual DC appearances. It's just the convention for Harley Quinn. We don't want to break it here because they just did it again in Finest. So this would collect all that Finest and then pass that Finest into basically the next Finest volume all in one omnibus. Then we actually, of course, have a lot of Harley Quinn that's been collected because we have all of the Connor and Palmiotti Harley Quinn, but there's more Harley Quinn after that. And I actually really like some of this stuff. So it's the run that directly follows the two of them to continue through Rebirth. It's written by Frank Thierry and then Sam Humphries. I found the Sam Humphries stuff absolutely hilarious. I know everybody.
Good Dark Side stuff
Harley
too,
Quinn.
Crisis.
What's that?
Good Dark Side stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Harley Quinn by Stephanie Phillips and Teenie Howard. That's another one, much like Catwoman, where it's like, how far can you push that run? Realistically, we probably should have called that just Harley Quinn Volume 1. But a lot of people know it specifically as the Stephanie Phillips run. And so we wanted to make sure to put her name on that. But of course, that continues past the two of them into a current run with Elliot Kalan. But that's still ongoing and it starts in the 40s. So there's probably enough to collect all the way through prior to that. We threw Poison Ivy on here. Also, you already saw Poison Ivy Omnibus Volume 1, which would be like a classic Poison Ivy stories book, which is actually one of my top things that I want, even though I don't even usually like greatest hits books. But then there's, of course, Poison Ivy by G. Willow Wilson. Yes, we got a first deluxe edition that has been announced, but just because we have a first deluxe edition doesn't mean that you don't want the omnibus, especially as this run is definitely omnibus size, actually creeping up to being a double omnibus sized run at this point. So you can continue to vote for it. Also, could that include like the miniseries that came before the G. Willow Wilson stuff? There's a lot of debate about that on the mapping team because it's so separate from G. Willow Wilson, but actually where else would you put that? One argument is one would go in Heroes in Crisis. The other one would maybe go in that Harley Quinn book above. But if you want to think it could include those, we said it could include them and you can use your imagination.
Come with me.
That artwork needs to be an oversized format. I know it will probably be an absolute and an omni, but oh my gosh, that run on Poison Ivy is amazing. And
it's modern classic.
And it was all thanks to Bar. Bar's the one that sent it to me. And I was like, this is going to be stupid. I don't believe that this is any good. And no, I was wrong. But then again, I was right about X-Men and she's enjoying X-Men. So good for her. Okay. Any thoughts or prayers on Harley Quinn? She got enough of a spotlight. Okay. Moving on to
Thanks,
Hawkman.
And I have been thoroughly hawk-pilled by working on this for the last couple of years. I'm like a Hawkman super fan right now that it's slowly getting to read some of the stuff, but of course, so much of it hasn't been reprinted. We have no Golden Age Hawkman. We have no Silver Age Hawkman, although we finally got a little bit of it in DC Finest, but there's so much of it. We could have multiple volumes of the Omnibus. Then we have some 80s Hawkman by Tony Isabella, and I always like to make the note that Tony Isabella now goes by the name Jenny Blake Isabella, but she has specifically said that she's talked to DC about credits on her past work, and she prefers to just have the name that was the name credit at the time. And so we're following that convention here on the poll with both Hawkman and with Black Lightning. Hawkman Hawkworld with John Ostrander, and of course the first little mini of Hawkworld is by Tim Truman. The thing is that the finale of that actually resolves in the following series. That's why we have could continue into the 1993 series, which really is a whole separate thing. Hawkman by Ostrander, Messner Loebs et al. Ostrander just writes the first little bit, and then Messner Loebs writes the rest of it. The way we've got them both in the poll, you can vote for them both and kind of decide on your own where you think the break point would be, or if you just want one or the other, just vote for one or the other. Then we have Hawkman and Hawkgirl by Palmiotti Gray and Simonson. That would follow the Hawkman by Jeff Johns omnibus. That's kind of just sits out there all alone, but there's more stuff that directly follows that. Then, of course, there's the New 52 era of Savage Hawkman, and then another one that I really love, which is Hawkman by Robert Venditti, starting in 2018, about 2 years into Rebirth, which has a lot of artwork by Brian Hitch in it.
That Robert Venditti series is excellent if you haven't read it. And Hawkworld, I'm surprised that has never been collected in. Just, I think there's a trade paperback from long ago, but that's about it. Yeah. There's a lot of Hawkman.
There are a lot of incarnations about the characters. So if you're interested in learning about Khufu and so many different, we could run a list, Peter, on all of this. We need more Hawkman. We need more Hawkman rep.
Hawkman is one of those characters that was, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, left in almost limbo because the editors and writers did not know what to do with the character. It was a retcon after retcon after retcon, and then it wasn't really until Hawkworld, and then later on, of course, Jeff Johns just kind of clarifying things. Okay, we're gonna wipe away everything. Let's fix Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Okay. Oh yeah, baby, give me that Hellblazer, John Constantine or Constantine, just to please everybody. So this is the way we've got them ranked and separated, because they are by creators, which is something that DC started, and that's what we're doing to continue. So we've got the Ellis and Azzarello run. We've got the Mike Carey era. We've got the Andy Diggle era. And then we've got the Peter Milligan era. We also have the New 52 era. And then we have the Rebirth era. Now, this is a different Constantine after the events of Brightest Day. So they decided to bring the character of John out of the pages of Vertigo and into the main line. So it's a little bit different. He doesn't age in real time anymore. And there were some few changes, and some people like myself were like, oh, that's not the real John Constantine. Anyway, there's also the Rebirth era omnibus right here. And then the stuff by Spurrier, Campbell, and Belair. So really, with the announced Paul Jenkins omnibus, this is what's left of Hellblazer. And if you're reading it for the first time, I've said many times that even if Paul Jenkins is my least favorite writer on Hellblazer, it's still some of the best comics out there. It's pronounced Constantine. Constantine is Keanu Reeves' movie. Constantine is the American way of pronouncing it, because we refuse to give in to John Constantine, even though he himself says it rhymes with rhymes. But you know what? I've actually interviewed creators that have written the character, and they pronounce it both ways. And all the creators, for the most part, that have written the character are from the UK. It's pronounced constipation, but the character's British. It rhymes with turpentine. All right. I'm not getting in the middle of it. That's why I said Constantine, to please everybody. Any thoughts on this amazing run? Crisis, have you read Hellblazer?
No, I really actually haven't read very much Hellblazer prior to like the really new stuff. I've read Rebirth, Hellblazer, New 52, but I've never read the classic stuff because I'm constantly kicking myself that I didn't get the 26 trade paperbacks.
Is the creator focus mapping weird to read? Not really, because they did a good job with volumes 1 and 2. It's not until you get to the Garth Ennis, which was the only omnibus they were going to do, apparently. And then now the New World Order, as we call it, of DC came in and said, no, let's
we need
map
Jamie
around
Delano.
that. we're going to fix this. So it really isn't. Just keep in mind that the character does age in real time. And the only one that you have to kind of read around is the Garth Ennis towards the late, because he comes back to the character after some things have happened. But then the Paul Jenkins stuff is kind of mapped around that too. It's spelled out phonetically as Constantine in Sandman. Ooh, Razor Ramen coming in with the heat. Tigereyes, what about you? You a fan of Hellblazer?
I've never read an issue.
Never read one issue of Hellblazer.
Nor don't drop me from the stream. Nor have I read an issue of Swamp Thing.
We have to change.
That's okay. That's surprising me though. Like, are you more of a Marvel guy? Would you say?
Absolutely.
Definitely. Okay. Yeah. We need to educate you. We need to sit you down.
Not the propaganda tools from Omar.
And then you can have a say in whether it's Constantine or what would you say? Is it Constantine or Constantine?
I say teen, but what do I know?
Okay, Dom, best. What's the best run on Hellblazer for you?
Spurrier, because I got a chance to interview him and we talked about it.
I do love the Spurrier run a lot.
It is good.
I love it.
Nothing comes close to the Garth Ennis run. That run is so good, man. Which is why they started with the best one. All right. Justice League.
Da, 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 da. I try to do the JLU theme song, but I don't think it picked up on my
You almost got me demonetized for that. Okay.
No. I know.
Take it away, Crisis and Dawn.
They could take away from me. So yeah, we got the Bronze Age Omnibus Volume 5. We have seen Volume 4 put in the catalog with some of your guys' suggestions that DC is still working on. But this would be right before that very nicely designed, if I may, Detroit League Omnibus. That's got some of my favorite Vixen stuff in it. We also got Post-Crisis of Pre-JLA. I've already seen JLI's Omnibuses 1, 2, and 3. Some of my favorite omnibuses in my collection. And Volume 4 would continue that same line-wide mapping that we have seen from the first 3 JLI omnibuses. We've also got Task Force and Extreme Justice of which could include living assault weapons. So that, again, is right before we get a very new era with the Watchtower. And, of course, we already got Grant Morrison and Mark Waid's. Mark Waid's is coming out later this year, but it looks like, at least from what we have seen so far and from the information that has been given to us, so that they are trying to keep the Mark Waid omnibus by Mark Waid. I know that Omar is in the midst of some other different things, but as for now, we do have Mark Waid staying as Mark Waid. And what follows that up is the Joe Kelly Dennis O'Neil omnibus. Joe Kelly, I think my favorite actually of the big 3 with this specific round of characters. It would include all of the hopeful one-shots maybe that come around it, as we have seen from their mapping in, I think anyways, a better mapping in the thicker JLA trade paperbacks, where they actually managed to include some of the one-offs. And if it was by, say, Mark Millar, even though it wasn't in, say, the Grant Morrison omnibus, they managed to stick those in there. We would like to see, well, we throw that in the same way as the Kelly omnibus. We also got the Road to Infinite Crisis. Yes, Claremont and Byrne return on a book together in the pages of JLA. We also got Chuck Austin, Kurt Busiek, and Jeff Johns, who also managed to round out those parts before the world decides to collapse on itself and expand out into many. And we also got a companion minibus, which are, again, all of the skipped issues, that some of which are in those JLA thick trade paperbacks, like I've mentioned, and in continuity miniseries and original graphic novels like Midsummer's Nightmare.
Just to add a note on this, because this was probably the one that we went the closest to deadline mapping, and actually one of these titles is subtly different on the poll, but you'll be able to find it alphabetically. We kept in International Volume 4 because, as Dom said, we have no indication how DC is going to map after the 3 line-wide books, and we've got 3 line-wide books. So much like if you're a Marvel fan, you've seen us talk about X-Men or Spider-Man, we can only kind of map the way that DC has indicated. Would they ultimately break out the many different Justice League books into their own line, starting with Volume 4? No one knows. So if you want any permutation of that, just vote for Volume 4. The reason Justice League Task Force is broken out separately is because it never really crosses over with the other Justice League books, and it's one contained run. So could potentially a Volume 5 or Volume 6 wind up just enveloping Task Force as well? possibly, but that one's kind of off to its side enough that we felt that we could put it in its own. Same for Extreme Justice. The one other thing I'll say is that we have officially added that companion minibus. I know that DC's never used the minibus term, but that's really what it is. And the reason we did that is because now we've seen the mapping of the Mark Waid book. We kind of always had a question mark of if that Grant Morrison book was going to exist all on its own. If you're not somebody who knows this material super well, the Morrison book only collects issues that they wrote. So it skips some other issues by some other writers. And so we kind of always thought, oh, will that just be its own separate thing? And then will they collect JLA from the beginning without gaps? No, actually it's being collected in, so far from what we can see, in a really similar way to Constantine or Constantine, where it's going to be mostly centered around creators. So Joe Kelly's the next long-running creator, but as Don pointed out, there's a lot of individual Mark Millar issues in there, and there's also a lot of other stuff. That companion minibus actually could be 2 or 3 volumes. There is so much stuff in there, but some of it could exist as its own deluxe. I could absolutely foresee DC putting the Mark Millar stuff as its own deluxe to kind of fit alongside the Morrison, Waid, and Cully stuff on your shelf. But if you kind of are looking for some version of where's all that other stuff, you can put your vote into the companion minibus. That is why we built it that way this year.
I did try to get those issues added to the JLA by Mark Waid Omnibus, and I was politely told no, not because of the way they're doing this omnibus. Another thing I just want to note before we move on to the next slide is that I can't believe I'm saying this, but Jeff Johns is actually the saving grace of that Justice League Road to Infinite Crisis, because oh my God, well, everybody knows Austin, but Claremont and Busiek, man, they couldn't even bring it. It was all about that Crisis of Conscience storyline that Jeff Johns did, which is a follow-up to the Identity Crisis story. Can't believe I'm saying all that, but it's
true. It's
not that great. That era is not that great after Joe Kelly leaves the book. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next slide?
Nope.
Okay. Take it away.
Oh man, we got some more good stuff here. We got JLA Classified. So we get Pre-Flashpoint. And if you're looking at some of these books that we're ramping up, we're getting to the point of Infinite Crisis. We're going to get to a spot where we get the title eventually relaunched. We have had the Meltzer run in particular placed in a deluxe hardcover that I have somewhere here on my, actually, it's right here next to my bookshelf. So they have done titles like this before, where they have placed these books in oversized, but we have not had an omnibus, not only of the Meltzer and Ed Bennis run, but also the McDuffie and the Bennis run that follows right after, including a villain special that would be collected in that. And there is more than enough to make this a 2-part set as well, not just specifically contained in the one. We've also got the Justice League Generation Lost series by Heath Giffen and Judd Wade. It could also include some of those Power Girl issues that are thrown in there. And this is all the stuff right before we get to the critical juncture at Flashpoint. And in New 52, we do have the Justice League United International in America. For those who might not know, they did have completely differences. For example, like you look at Justice League of America by Jeff Johns, and it's not your typical Justice League of America. There were issues there that did feature some villains joining the team, but it was all some of it anyways, in a ramp up to the ongoing Trinity War crossover between all of the Justice League books. And we would find a way, and we thought, I think this was the best way going forward, because some of those runs are a little bit short by some standards, that it would be nice to have International, America, and United all collected under one umbrella. We also got the Rebirth to the Present with Rebirth Omnibus by Brian Hitch and Christopher Priest. This kicked off the Rebirth run in total, and right before Scott Snyder gets on Justice League of America, like you had Brian Hitch on the New 52 issues. He decided, well, might as well go write the regular Rebirth issues. We also do have the Steve Orlando series, Justice League of America series. I still remember when Steve Orlando's book was pitched as they presented it as a secret book. That secret book eventually became one with Fixin, Killer Frost, and a couple of other characters. So if that is something that you're looking forward to, we've had that in deluxe format. Those two Rebirth series in deluxe formats, but not yet in omnibus format. The Justice League Odyssey by Williamson and Abnett. This is what I would technically call the follow-up to Abnett's Titans run, because a lot of the characters are literally Titans. I call this like sort of the continuation of that. But if you want to see Williamson and Stepan Sajic at first, and then when Abnett returns onto the characters that some of which he was writing in his regular Titans book, that is one that you will have to keep in mind. coming along at the same time as Justice League Dark and also the regular Justice League. And then we have the Rebirth Omnibus by Venditti, Spurrier, Williamson, and Bendis. And these are all books that follow after Scott Snyder leaves the title at issue 39 to go write the 2020 event Dark Knight's Death Metal. So if you're looking for some of those issues that have never been fully placed in the omnibus, we've had the Justice League by Snyder and Tynion omnibuses 1 and 2. This would follow right after that.
Okay. Thoughts on this era? Anyone else?
I will say that I think we may have removed one book here that I know people are used to seeing, which is the second half of that, which has the James Robinson stuff that's right before Flashpoint. And I think that's just because the mapping is so unclear at this point. It's like it's truly a map ahead. It's like we don't know really what that would contain or where it would start or if they would
be part of that Justice League of America by Meltzer and McDuffie, and because that would be in the volume 2.
Right, exactly. So we kind of, after a lot of people had a lot of comments on it, we're actually like, we don't really know. So I think that is why it is not on the poll this year.
I think it's safe. It's a safe bet. They might just call that Justice League of America post Infinite Crisis.
Yeah. So if you want Justice League of America, whatever that thing is, with starting off with Meltzer and Bendis, this is the book you would vote for.
Leave Cry for Justice alone. He was trying to make Prometheus happen again. The JSA.
Ooh.
So, JSA is All-Star Comics, the Golden Age, 1940 and on. The JSA Golden Age All-Stars. So these are the solo stories of Hourman, Starman, Wildcat, and others. And then the Retcon. So this is where we put the All-Star Squadron, because this is the stuff that came out in the early 80s, but it was a throwback series, much like Roy Thomas's Invaders. So this would be a volume 1 of 2. This is also where we're putting the JSA Young All-Stars, another retro series that took place in the past, and also the Bronze Age here. So you have Crisis on Multiple Earths, the Justice League team-ups, and it could include other Earths 2 stuff, the Last Days of the Justice Society of Earth 2, and this is all the way until they come back in the 0 Hour era. So when some of the characters are aged out of being superheroes. And then the Infinity Incorporated, which is the legacy characters of those Golden Age heroes. Some of these characters will end up in stories like Sandman, for example. But that's this first slide. Anyone else want to talk about this era of Justice Society?
No, I think you explained it really well. Again, just that JSA Young All-Stars is very much kind of post-crisis repair. And that's why we have it as Golden Age inserts and retcons, even though it's a modern book. But Omar, very well described.
Well, thank you. I'm here all day, every day.
Every day.
Why don't you take this slide, Tigereyes?
All right. JSA Companion, including Prelude to the Return of the Justice Society, JSA Classified starting from 2005 to 2008. JSA Omnibus Volume 4, Willingham, Guggenheim, etc. Earth 2, the new 52, Volume 2. And JSA, the New Golden Age by Johns, including the minis.
Yeah, that Johns mapping actually I'm quite fond of it. We would include New Golden Age and his 12-issue JSA series with Mikel Janet, but we also are going to get the Jeremy Adams, the Jay Garrick, the Flash series, along with that Alan Scott and Wesley Dodds series. That Wesley Dodds series drawn by Riley Rossmo, if I may add. So all of those series cooped up, along with Jeff Johns returning to Courtney Whitmore, the character that he created as part of the Starman, or the Starman line, if you will, and moving on past that as well. And we don't have enough issues yet for the current Jeff Lemire run on JSA, but I'm sure that in 1 or 2 years' time, that will also pop up on this poll too.
And to just add one note about the JSA Companion, this came from fan comments last year, that there's actually a lot of JSA stuff with the members kind of return to mainline continuity in the 90s that wouldn't be collected elsewhere, like Wildcat appearances and Showcase, or just like all sorts of things of that nature. There's some Hourman stuff. And so we just broadly called that JSA Companion of all of that JSA material that's kind of like from right around the time of 0 Hour up to the start of the JSA series in 1999.
This slide is a reminder to everybody that there was a time, and I know that Tigereyes and Crisis remember this because we were in the forum when this was happening, when DC announced that they were going to do a JSA Omnibus Volume 1, and they were leaving out issues by James Robinson. It was just going to be Jeff Johns. So those first few issues that David Goyer and James Robinson did were going to be left out of that omnibus. And then, we took a petition. It was crazy, but it was just the Wild West back then when it came to collected editions at DC. And we are living in different times. Like, there's no way in hell they would start a JSA omnibus now without the first few issues, or even the miniseries that lead up, or one-shots that lead up into there. Will Infinity Incorporated include Johnny Thunder from the 80s? Yes, it will. All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Legion of Superhero. Who are these guys?
Lars!
Unfortunately, we don't have Lars this time, so you're stuck with me. But these have been vetted by Lars, who's one of the biggest Legion fans we know. And then we also ran it by Jess to make sure it makes sense. And last year, these were very well ranking on the poll. So we already have Legion of Superheroes Silver Age book, but we could have a Bronze Age book. And this is where effectively Superboy in the Legion of Superheroes, because they start appearing in his title and then they actually take over the title of his title. If we had that line continue all the way through all of the 70s, it would eventually include all of the Karate Kid series. Then we have Legion of Superheroes in 1980 by Jerry Conway, who writes a book that we could definitely collect all under his name, that we could also call it Legion of Superheroes in the 80s, Volume 1, if you really wanted to. Then we have the Paul Levitz material, and usually we do not map ahead. However, because the first chunk of this Paul Levitz material is more or less collected entirely in oversized hardcover, we actually see that people are very keen to move on to the Volume 2. It does very, very well on the poll. That's why we've given them both a unique name rather than Volume 1 and Volume 2, to show that they could exist on their own without each other on the list. There's a great debate in the comments of Crushing Crisis every year about which one of those Volume 1 and Volume 2 should include Tales of the Legion of Superheroes. I do not have a position. You can assume it would be in whichever of those books you vehemently feel it should be in. Let's go to the next slide. After Crisis, we could get Legion of Superheroes by Paul Levitz Volume 3, but again, you could release that on its own because it's the first post-Crisis volume, and it fits before 5 years later, which we do have an omnibus. It includes things like Cosmic Boy, Who's Who, could include The Wanderers. Then we have Legion of Superheroes Valor, which was like a series all on its own that happens off to the side. Then we come to Legion of Superheroes and the Legionnaires. These series start running alongside each other. Actually, they'd already been running alongside each other, but they continue being tied very closely to each other following 0 Hour. So there's a lot of things we could call this. We could call this 0 Hour Aftermath. We could call it Reboot. We could call it Following 5 years later or After 5 years later, but that's what the book is. And then finally, after a couple of volumes of that, we would get to Legion of Superheroes by Abnett and Lanning, which is, of course, a very famous and popular run that starts in 1999. They wrap up both of those series, and then they've, of course, continue on to several other popular series, including Legion Lost.
So good luck to everybody that's a Legion fan. Make sure you vote because you guys killed it last year in the poll.
Let DC know that we want that Paul Levitz Omni. I'm not trying to rig the vote, by the way.
Go ahead with this one.
So look, we just finally got announced a mid-2000s Legion book, but we still need one more to get to Flashpoint, which is Legion of Superheroes 2010, The Return of the Legion, which is often called Retro Boot. That's the final one that we need to make it all the way to Flashpoint. Then after Flashpoint, there's actually not a lot of Legion. There was a little bit of Legion in New 52. They had 2 titles that could be collected all into one omnibus because it's not very lengthy. And then, of course, Brian Bendis takes over Legion of Superheroes in 2019 for a couple of years, and there's the reason we have it starting in 2019, even though the series started in 2020, is because he writes some lead up stuff from other titles, and he had like
Superman,
2-issue series leading into that. So you probably want to collect some of that into there as well. And Legion is different from every other book in the poll, and that we actually put the year number of the volume in the title so that you can keep track, just because there's been so many different Legion series and you really need good way marking to figure out which one you're voting for. So that's why there's like 2 years in the Bendis one. It's the Legion of Superheroes 2020 series, but then the range of years for this omnibus would be 2019 to 2022.
And in 4 years, when Joshua Williamson finishes out his Legion of Superheroes run, I am sure
another modern one. Yeah, maybe somebody will pick up something to do with them eventually.
Long live the Legion.
I'll take Martian Manhunter. This is not very long because there's not a lot of Martian Manhunter out there. There's the Silver Age Omnibus, which would just be one volume, and that would be from 1955 until the Silver Age ends with his appearances. And then there's Martian Manhunter by John Ostrander, and of course, joined by the phenomenal Tom Mandrake on art. And then that would also include the minis from 1988 and 1992. If you're a big fan of the Spectre and what John Ostrander did there, it's got that very similar feel. And Martian Manhunter by Lieberman, Williams, and Orlando, collecting the series from 2007 to 220. A lot of this stuff has not been collected in trade paperback format. I think the Ostrander stuff only had 1 or 2 trades, and that's it, which is why we're putting it all here. And there's just 3 books, really. That's it for Martian Manhunter until absolute Martian Manhunter will come one day, but we don't have
guys. We need that Chocos issue with John Jones getting mad at Blue and Gold for stealing his Chocos in omnibus format. We need that in as soon as possible, guys.
Yes, everybody should get pissed. All right. Moving on to Mr. Miracle and the Fourth World.
This is just a brief slide of a few things that we could still get. So there's Mr. Miracle, the Bronze Age Omnibus. Clearly, there's some Kirby material in that, and we've already seen that collected in Omnibus in the Kirby book. But the run does continue past that, and we could wind up just getting a deluxe of the post-Kirby stuff. But because Mr. Miracle is kind of popular on his own, we could just see it all in one book as well. Could kind of go either way. Then there's Mr. Miracle in the post-Crisis realm. He has a number of series of his own in the late 80s and 90s that would make a perfectly sized omnibus. And then there's a book that we've called Fourth World and the New Gods by Starland, Evanier, Payer, and Pollock. There's a lot of stuff here, and basically there's that Burn Fourth World omnibus, but there's a lot of things that happen just before that, to the side of that, and then after that. So this book would kind of like wrap around that, kind of like that's the donut hole to this donut. And so this would have all of the other Fourth World material. It could even include Cosmic Odyssey or even Tachyon. And so this is another one of the kind of choose what you think should be in it books, but mostly it's existing to collect all of the stuff that the Burn book left out by virtue of it not being burned.
I can't believe we still have more of the Fourth World and New Gods. Well, I guess that's the death of the New Gods, and I'd love to see the Tachyon and Cosmic Odyssey collected, though.
And that would go right before your Final Crisis Absolute. So for anybody out there watching,
hey.
Oh god, just okay. Moving on to the Outsiders. This is a great era of Teen Titans, and when they were like, we're no longer Teen Titans, now we feel like Outsiders. And they go through this era quite often. So you have the classic Outsiders, Batman and the Outsiders. This stuff from 1983, 1986. It's been available in standard size hardcover. They did finish that out. And then the Outsiders by Mike W. Barr, 1985 to 1995. Go Batman Year 2. Outsiders by Judd Winnick is the era that I love so much. It runs right alongside the Teen Titans by Jeff Johns. It would make an amazing omnibus. We can do it in 2 because then that splits up into the Batman and the Outsiders by Chuck Dixon, Peter Tomasi, and Dan Didio, who ends up running it into the ground. But you do have some phenomenal artwork in there from people like Philip Tan. And then Outsiders, Batman and the Outsiders. This is the Rebirth stuff by Brian Hill. Tigereyes, what do you think about this?
I love those first 2 runs. I think this is the first time you and I Winnick stuff. I'm a favorite.
We're not agreeing? Is that what you're saying? That's your way of telling me we're not agreeing on something for the first time?
But I'm glad you like it.
Is that why you wanted to chime in on the slide? That's it?
No.
Really? Okay. I'll see how it is, Tigereyes. I loved it, though. I thought it was
that
great.
Rebirth Omni's got Dexter Soyar, too. Some dang good Dexter Soyar, some dang good Cassandra Cain stuff, too. So check it out.
So different eras of the Outsiders with different team members, too. So vote for what era you prefer. Shazam! Or Shazam! Or just the Captain.
No Shazam omnibuses out in the world right now. So there's a lot of different eras that we could be tackling. Of course, many fans of classic comics would love to see Shazam from the Golden Age, aka the Fawcett years. Would this just collect Shazam itself? Would it include Captain Marvel Jr. and also the Captain Marvel family? impossible to say because we have no idea how DC would approach this. But a vote for this at least is a vote for them to get underway and finally collecting that. Some of it has been collected by other publishers because I guess there is some public domain availability of those books. But of course, we would love to see it restored to the same quality of the DC Golden Age omnibuses. Then there's a series in the 70s, Shazam, the World's Mightiest Mortal, that could collect the entire Bronze Age run, which we have seen in trade paperback. Then there's a series that I think is phenomenal, which is The Power of Shazam, that starts after Crisis. We might need 2 volumes to cover all of that, including all of the other things. There's also some other right after Crisis, like miniseries and original graphic novels that kind of set up who Shazam is going to be in the post-Crisis world. They are slightly contradicted from the beginning by the beginning of Power of Shazam, but I personally would hope that they would all be collected into that line. Then we have Billy Batson and the Magic of Shazam. That's an all ages comic that happened slightly before Flashpoint. Then, of course, there's the whole saga of Shazam post Flashpoint by Jeff Johns. We know that it starts as backups in Justice League, and then he graduates into his own series. And then finally, we had a relatively recent run, and I think both authors fit into the same book, of Shazam by Mark Waid and Josie Campbell. I found this run to be such a sweet, fun, comfy book, a comfort book. You could include some or all of Lazarus Planet, since the Shazam family were a big player in that. But Mark Waid and Josie Campbell finally kind of made it a book about a family of kids, that kind of a found family of kids that are still a family again. And that's why I really, really liked it. The Jeff Johns run for me kind of didn't focus on that as much. So I have a great affection for that Mark Waid and Josie Campbell stuff. Also a lot of really great art in that run.
Shout out to Alejandro Sanchez and Dan Mora for the first half.
Yes, thank you.
Can't believe he was drawing that as fast as he was. Jesus. But yeah, Power of Shazam for me. That stuff is awesome.
Yeah, Jerry Ordway, baby.
So good.
So good. I agree.
The Spectre. This is a character that has had some love. We've had some classic stuff from the Silver Age, but we need the Golden Age stuff. There is also the Doug Mensch era of the Spectre from 1987 to 1989. This is the stuff that predates the John Ostrander series. And then probably my favorite era right after the John Ostrander series is the Hal Jordan era, when Hal died, and spoilers, he dies in one of the crossovers we're including in here, and then becomes the Spectre. This is all done by J.M. DeMatteis, which is why whenever you read Green Lantern Rebirth, and not the Green Lantern Rebirth era, Green Lantern Rebirth by Jeff Johnson, Ethan Van Sciver, he is the Spectre. That's why. And it all happens in this omnibus. But anyway, that's it. That's it. Just 3 omnis, and that would be it, because we're getting a volume 2 of the Ostrander stuff. But this stuff, by the way, outside of Day of Judgment, I think, and Final Night, has never been collected for the James DeMatteis stuff.
You got to get it in at some point.
But I love that era. And then we have Suicide Squad. Take it away, Crisis.
All right, Suicide Squad for the longest time was a line that we didn't think we would ever see enough of in Omnibus. Finally, DC has gotten underway, but there's some gaps to fill. So we still need a Suicide Squad by John Ostrander, Volume 3, which would wrap up the Ostrander run. Then, separately from that, there's Suicide Squad by Giffen, Ostrander, and Willingham, which is basically all of the Suicide Squad and Suicide Squad adjacent content from the 2000s, which could include Raise the Flag as well as Salvation Run, which wasn't officially a Suicide Run focus title, but it fits into this book. Then we do have Suicide Squad from 52, but there's a second part of New 52. I don't know that would actually be volume 2, because Dom, I can't remember. Does the volume 1 New 52 omnibus have a 1 on its spine? I don't.
It should, yeah.
It does. It does. Okay, but this would be the second half of that, which is actually a separate series, the New Suicide Squad. And then we don't have any Rebirth Suicide Squad, which always really surprises me, because that had Jim Lee.
Jim Lee art, yeah. Jim Lee art, baby.
It also has that whole Justice League versus Suicide Squad, which for me, a really fun story. And then after that, there's a brief run of Suicide Squad, one by Tom Taylor, another by Robbie Thompson. There's some really cool stuff in there. They're very separate runs from each other. So in reality, would that Tom Taylor book maybe be a deluxe since it's got the Taylor name? Maybe. But then there's also the Robbie Thompson run, which has stuff like War for Earth 3. And there was also a whole King Shark digital first series that got released physical as well. And that all kind of fits into that period. So until we see DC crack into one half or the other with a deluxe, we're going to assume it could be an omnibus, but ultimately that might be actually a series of deluxes.
Give me that Ostrander stuff, and I'll take the Giffen, Ostrander, Willingham stuff. I'm glad you had fun with that Rebirth era of Suicide Squad, though, Crisis, and that's all that matters. Thoughts on anything else here before we move on to the next slide?
No,
we got to get to Superman.
Oh boy.
Here we
I
go.
wish I had Chubby Ray here to support me. I know he's going to support me in spirit in the comments, but I'm going to do my best.
Go for it.
Okay, so we have Golden and Silver Age. This is easy because they're unified lines that include Superman and action. For Golden Age, we need Volume 8 as the next book. For Silver Age, we need Volume 3. Done and done. Then we go to the Bronze Age. We haven't kicked off a Bronze Age Superman line in Omnibus. We've seen where that would start in DC Finest, but it's never been oversized before. So much like DC just finally cracked into the Bronze Age for Batman, we could crack into the Bronze Age for Superman. Then there's a book that we could call Superman Team Up, because DC Comics Presents, which starts in 1978, is effectively a Superman team up book for a lot of it. I don't think it would be collected in line with the Superman line just because the stories are so one-shotty, much like Marvel Team Up for Spider-Man if you're a Marvel person. So we've got that mapped into a separate book. If you choose to believe that that would all be incorporated into the Bronze Age book once it gets to 1978, more power to you. We can't stop you from believing that. That's why there's the titles poll and not the mapping poll. Then, because we gave Batman a 1980s omnibus, we wanted to be fair and also give Superman a 1980s omnibus. Would the Bronze Age line eventually get here? Absolutely it would, and we've seen them do that with Justice League. But if you're in a hurry to see that 1980s pre-crisis Superman, here's one more anchor point that you could throw your vote into on the poll. Then we have the post-crisis Superman. So we know that we are all waiting with bated breath for the Man of Steel by John Byrne omnibus volume 1. It's going to take 2 omnibuses. We already know that. We've seen it in Absolute now. We've seen it in Finest. Can we get it in an omnibus DC? And of course, this is not just the original Man of Steel 6-issue series. It goes into that whole John Byrne period across all of the titles. And it would take us all the way up to the books that have already started collecting following John Byrne leading into Triangle. Then we have Triangle 1 through 3 already. So Triangle 4 would be the next book. We did not go through and map every Triangle book because the breakpoints are still kind of ambiguous. However, when there are books that we could very neatly map, we have. And that's why we have Triangle Era City of Tomorrow in one book, because we've seen them doing it in Compendium and we know that it could basically be Triangle year 2000. So they don't have to wait for the line to get there. Same for Triangle Era President Lex, because now that we have our worlds at war, we kind of know what will go directly before it. So maybe they decided that like 10 or 11 Triangle books is too high a number, and they decide to just put these final few Triangle books out by storyline title. Then we get to post-Triangle, and this is one of those areas that's really controversial. I hate to always bring up Marvel in a DC stream, but sometimes, you know, you've seen us handle Marvel for a longer time in the Tigereyes poll. This period is kind of like the debate between, do we want X-Men line-wide books or do we want X-Men title books? Because we could have Superman post-Triangle era Adventures of Superman that would just be Adventures of Superman and only the required crossovers. It's a very popular book written by Joe Casey and Greg Rucka at different points. Similarly, you might just want Superman Action Comics in the post-Triangle era, which is mostly written by Joe Kelly. However, you might want the whole Superman line together post-Triangle, in which case you should vote for Superman post-Triangle era volume 1, which would be a line-wide omnibus. It would probably take 4 volumes to get us through Infinite Crisis. We have not taken the first 2 off the poll or the third one off the poll in favor of each other because there's votes spread across both of them and people seem to be demanding both of them. So it's kind of not for us to put our thumb on the scale at this point. However, what we can say is after that would be Superman by John Zimbiziak that would follow the Infinite Crisis omnibus and fit directly before that new Krypton omnibus. Finally, we would have Superman Confidential, which is its own relatively brief series. Maybe that's more of a deluxe than an omnibus, but there are some other pre-Flashpoint Superman mini-series that could get added in there as well. And then finally, a new Krypton Saga Volume 2. We've already got a Volume 1. That would likely include, we don't know for sure, but probably all of World Without Superman.
And we got more Superman stuff.
Yet more. Let's go, baby.
Let's talk about the post-Flashpoint stuff, and then we can just talk about Superman in general. Go ahead.
Yeah. So look, all we really have immediately following Flashpoint is the Superman by Grant Morrison omnibus. So we need 2 more, possibly 3, depending on how they break up, books to cover the major Superman titles in the New 52 era. So there's Superman, the adjectiveless title. There's a whole range of famous creators that were on there: Perez, Jurgens, Lobdell, John, Tomasi, Yang. That would probably have to be 2 volumes because it goes a full 52 issues plus annuals plus crossovers. Then there's Superman Action Comics by Greg Pak. That follows Morrison and also would probably include some material from Lobdell and Diggle. Then there's also Then we get past New 52, and we're talking about Superman by Brian Bendis. Of course, Brian Bendis writes both Superman and Action Comics. Would they be mapped together, threaded together? Would they be mapped in separate books? We don't know, but either way, vote Volume 1 to press start on collecting that. Please note, we know we are going to be asked. We cannot title and map a second volume of Superman by Philip Kennedy Johnson because they have a book currently running, The Adventures of Superman, book of L happening right now, and we don't know if that will get a follow-up. So we don't know how it would be mapped yet. It is an active run. We cannot put it on the poll, even though part of the run is already finished directly following his original run. So actually, we would skip over the very end of what Philip Kennedy Johnson wrote in Action Comics to go to Superman Action Comics Phantoms and Superstars. So Phantoms is a weekly series of Action Comics that was written by Mark Waid. It had a Supergirl backup. I love the Mark Waid front matter. I think it's a really cool Phantom Zone story. But on either side of that Mark Waid run, there was this run called Superstars, where really big creators, including Jason Aaron, Gail Simone, each dropped in for 3 issues each and just wrote like a very contained Action Comic story with Superman. And so they could be a series of deluxes, but right now it actually feels like that could be one big, pretty hefty and pretty enjoyable to read omnibus.
Okay, so really quick, yes to more of the Triangle era. Yes to Man of Steel. That's my #1 most wanted DC Omnibus. We'll get it one day, I'm sure. And it will be mapped different than the Man of Steel for hardcovers that we have, because it will include World of Krypton, World of Smallville, and World of Metropolis, or at least I want to make sure that it does, plus all the little backup stories from Action Comics that were only like 2-pagers. And somebody was commenting, wow, Superman has been collected poorly. Yeah, and DC knows that, but this is the new era of DC collected editions, and you know there's a lot to collect. So make sure you vote for the book that you want. Somebody said do not vote for this book. Vote for what you want. Some people love it. You know, it's not for everybody. I get it, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. I myself may vote for Superman Blue and Red one day, which will all be part of the Triangle era.
I know we were tempted to map Electric Superman as, but it's just the start and the end of it is a little too ambiguous. So it's just going to be a Triangle book.
It will, it will eventually be a Triangle era. No need to like double dip with like Death and Return of Superman. Any other thoughts before we move on to the Superman post-Flashpoint? My gosh, there's a lot of Superman to collect.
No, we already did that. You just reversed to talk about the
Oh, that's right. Superman family. Sorry. Before we move on to the Superman family. No thoughts. Okay, cool. Take it away, Crisis.
All right, pretty quick one through here with Superboy. So remember, Superboy prior to Crisis was canonically at that time actual early stories of Clark Kent in the Silver Age. So we have Superboy, the Golden Age Omnibus, which is actually Silver Age. It's confusing. But then there's Superboy, the Silver Age Omnibus, and then also Superboy, the Bronze Age Omnibus. So pick your fighter. You can start in any of those 3 places for Superboy. Then we have basically the 80s Omnibus is the 4th one there, which is the New Adventures of Superboy. That's by Bates and Kupperberg. Then we go into the post-crisis world where Superboy is the Superboy from the Reign of Superman. So we have Superboy, the 1990s Omnibus. That can include all of Superboy and the Ravers, if you prefer, in which case it's almost certainly a volume 1. Then shortly before Flashpoint, we get a different Superboy in Superboy, the Boy of Steel. That's by Jeff Johns and Jeff Lemire. And then finally, there was a Superboy series that kind of was an even different still Superboy in the New 52.
It all gets so confusing when you're
it does get rather
Lord
confusing.
Connor. And we have Supergirl. So we have the Bronze Age era that needs to be collected.
Yep.
And then we get into my favorite era of Supergirl, which, as to echo what Crisis was saying, it is a different Supergirl than you had been reading before, leading up to Crisis on Infinite Earths. This is a different character. Volume 1, you would need 2. So this is a different character than the Supergirl, the Girl of Steel by Jeff Loeb, created by Michael Turner at the time. And Supergirl, the Girl of Steel by Sterling Gate, which is a continuation from that era that started with Jeff Loeb and then Ian Churchill on artwork. And then Supergirl, the Rebirth Omnibus by Orlando Hauser and Draco. And that would give you all of Supergirl collected in an omnibus format. Of course, some of these would just be a volume 1 and then have to continue into future volumes. And for the rest of the Superman family,
So there's not a ton of other Superman family to talk about. There's Superman girlfriend, Lois Lane, the Silver Age, and then we could start in the Bronze Age. Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane, the Bronze Age. Similarly, there's a Superman family book that exists in the Bronze Age that could be all in one book rather than split across the features that are inside of it. There's Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, the Silver Age, which is before it kind of gets absorbed into Kirby's Fourth World. And then there's the Bronze Age. Now, we know that some of that's already collected in Kirby's Fourth World, but the series does continue past that. So much like Mr. Miracle earlier in the poll, if you've always wanted to see it all on its own, separated from the Fourth World, this would be the book to vote for. Then in the 90s, in terms of the Superman family outside of Superboy and Supergirl, there is Steel, who has a substantial book of his own in the 1990s, which is a very fun read. And then I think we'll continue to some slightly more modern stuff. So Power Girl we have on here because she was very much part of the Superman line during this very recent dawn of DC. That's by Leah Williams. There were also some Power Girl backups in Action Comics leading into that, so they could capture all of those. There's also Superman by Bendis Companion because there was so much stuff happening to the side of Bendis. There's Jimmy Olsen by Matt Fraction. There was a Lois series by Greg Rucka. There was Leviathan and Checkmate by Bendis himself. Some of those ultimately could be incorporated into the Superman books. The Jimmy and Lois stuff probably could be their own deluxes too, or would you like to just see it as a companion book? Then there's Superman John Kent, the son of Kal-El by Tom Taylor. We've never seen all of that collected in Omnibus. There's a very popular book with voters that I get reminded literally several dozen times every year to put on the poll, even though it is already on the poll, because I think people are looking for it to be alphabetized under N, and I understand, but we put it under Superman. Superman New Superman, which is Keenan Kong by Jean Lin Yang, a book that I find utterly charming. It's such a good read. And then finally, Superwoman, who had her own series at the beginning of Rebirth by Phil Jimenez and Kate Perkins, which is also really fun series. Kind of short, but it would be enough for its own omnibus.
That era of Superwoman reminds me of Superman Blue and Red. And
yes,
you're right about New Superman. It is that good. It was so good.
I also would quickly point out that we already have Jimmy Olsen in Deluxe by Fraction and Lieber, but if you want to get all that thrown into one Omni, this is definitely the way to go.
And that Checkmate crossover. Yay! Any other thoughts on
art
before we move on to Swamp Thing?
Let's keep it rolling.
You're going.
All right. Swamp Thing. So we have Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, and people are like, wait, we know the solicitations. Yeah. If it's not in the catalog or if it has not been solicited, we keep it on the poll. Just like we know that we've seen things leak about Rick Beach and Doug Wheeler Omnibus. Again, not solicited, not in the catalog. That's why we keep it on the poll. Otherwise, things that have even been in the catalog have been canceled. We've seen it time and time again. Swamp Thing by Brian K. Vaughan. This would follow up the Phil Hester and Mark Miller run. And oh my gosh, that would mean that this is crazy. Like just how much of Swamp Thing would be collected. They've done an amazing job collecting Swamp Thing. And then the Diggle and Desart from 2004 to 2006. And that's it. That's it for Swampy. That's crazy.
Yeah, we got an upcoming ROM v Omnibus. We've already got New 52 collected in Omnibus format with Snyder and Soul. I think they've managed to do a really good job with the characters.
And the mapping is amazing, and I just want to see that stuff collected in the way that they're doing the new Bronze Age Omnibus that they're coming out with. So cannot wait to see this stuff properly collected one day. Tigereyes, what's your favorite run on Swamp Thing? Just kidding, buddy. I pay attention.
We pulled the plug.
We're gonna move on to Titans.
Yes.
All right, take it away, Dom.
Oh man, this is my junk food, my daily junk food that I feel like DC, and we've seen the new Titans Omni in the catalog and be solicited, but we still have a long way to go before we get all of this in. We got Teen Titans Spotlight. This was previously solicited as the new Teen Titans Omnibus Volume 6. Well, that is no longer an omnibus, but if you want to tell DC, well, we can rebrand it, rename it, just like we've seen the new Titans Omni. That is the way to go for that book. And just like I mentioned, because we got Omnibus Volume 1, we got to get Omnibus Volume 2 soon with the Titans Hunt. And I would just like to see that elongated run put in that specific format. And some of, I think, the most underrated books that nobody ever talks about, because and as much as Johns gets credit and give credit where credit's due, I've talked about it in the compendium. We do not have Dan Jurgens' Teen Titans run or the Devin Grayson run of Titans that were split off and placed in this set amount of time. He's got charming characters, and we just do not have any collections of the mid-late 90s stuff. We've already now seen Young Justice get into 2 omnibus formats, but I would like to see the treatment for the Titans runs that ran cohesively at the same time too. Pre-Flashpoint, we also have the McKeever and JT Cruel run. They decided, well, we have the Johns Omnibus, but we don't have the issues that follow the Titans East versus Titan West crossover, where McKeever does take over the title. And we've seen some of that collected in omnibus format via the Final Crisis Omnibus. I would just like to see it as its own particular omnibus so we can get that 2003 run finished. We also do have the Titans by Judd Winnick not collected in omnibus format. So if you're looking for sort of a return back to status quo with that particular title, this is definitely one that you need to put on your list, including a very hilarious Dick Grayson and Corey scene. You've probably seen it before. That is in this run.
It's a very edgy run. I will say that you want to kick off that Teen Titans by McKeever and Kroll with the Gail Simone and Rob Liefeld issues. They were orphaned in the first omnibus, along with all the other issues.
Yeah, they get used 40. Yeah, like I said, the 40.
Adam Beechin.
Yeah,
have Batgirl stuff. Go ahead.
And then, yeah, we got Raven by Marv Wolfman. Marv Wolfman actually returned back to the character a couple of years out. And we've seen him return to other characters like Nightwing, which we have mentioned earlier in this as part of the post 1 year later and whatnot. But he did decide to return back to the character, including a 6-issue series where I bought it in singles. I remember going to my comic shop, and I bought the heck out of that Raven series because I just wanted to see more representation of the Titans. We've also got Scott Lobdell's New 52 Teen Titans, which features some Young Justice characters thrown in with other legacy characters. And granted, these aren't the characters that you probably remember from your childhood. There is even one Kid Flash that is a caricature of a different character, but that is also an era of Teen Titans that just has not been collected well, similarly to the Devin Grayson and the Dan Jurgens runs on Teen Titans. The Dan Abnett run on Titans is a return to form with all of the characters that you see with your regulars like Garth, Dick Grayson, Donna Troy, Roy Harper, and with art by Brett Booth. Brett Booth actually takes in a hold of a lot of the series here. So we've seen his art now on New 52 Teen Titans, and he decided to return back to the characters when they relaunched Titans in that specific form. And Teen Titans, because we need to have a teen book along with him. This is the team led by Damian Wayne, along with some more juvenile looking versions of the characters that you're probably familiar with, like Corey, like Raven, etc., including Aquaman, who also is joining the team. Young Justice and Naomi, this is the Wonder Comics run in 2018. DC gave Brian Michael Bendis the keys to a lot of things, and one of the things that I actually did like particularly about his time at DC were creating and spotlighting younger heroes, and he also wrote a very long, well, not too particularly long, but a decently long Young Justice run that featured Patrick Gleason early on art. We also had Emma Lupacchino and a couple of others, also featuring, again, yes, the original 4 of the Young Justice, along with characters like Amethyst, who also joined. Naomi, also a Brian Michael Bendis creation, had a big spotlight on her. She had 2 series, and that would also be thrown in that particular omnibus. And most recently, and this is, I mentioned this in my Taylor Titans Omnibus review, we also have the 2021 to 2023 era, particularly uncollected. This would be all of the Teen Titans Academy issues, by different creators that just have not had a chance to be placed in an oversized format. This would go in between the Titans Rebirth Omnibus by Dan Abnett and or Justice League Odyssey. If you decide to place that in there, it would go right in between that and the Tom Taylor run if you were to vote for it.
Thank you, Dom. Only thoughts here are that Raven by Marv Wolfman stuff, that miniseries is done by Damian Scott. Yep. Changed his artwork up. So if you're a fan of his Batgirl, don't expect that kind of art because it goes
it's really different.
Really, really cartoony. And I dig it, but it's not for everybody. Oh my gosh, the Trinity team up titles. And
Now we use this as a catch-all for anything that has any combination of any of the three Trinity. So we've got Batman and Superman World's Finest Silver Age Volume 3 in here. We've got Batman and Superman World's Finest Bronze Age here, which would immediately follow from Volume 3. We also have Batman Superman World's Finest Post-Crisis. They don't have an official singular World's Finest book, but they have a number of different mini-series that is World's Finest throughout that. So it's not really their other team-ups like their Batman Superman title, which has had its own omnibus. It's just World's Finest. And then there's Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Trinity by Kurt Busiek from 2008 and 2009. That is the weekly Trinity series. Then we have New 52. There was World's Finest New 52 by Paul Levitz, which actually wasn't Batman or Superman. It was World's Finest Huntress and Power Girl, which is technically part of the Earth 2 continuity, but it's, I think, Dom, part of Earth 2 continuity?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's substantial and it would need its own omnibus. Then there was a Batman Superman series in New 52 by Greg Pak. And then finally we have Superman Wonder Woman, which was its own series in New 52 that it could include the Doomed crossover as well. I actually really like that book. Then in Rebirth, they had finally a Trinity series called Trinity for the three of them. And that could also include some other team ups that they all had within that period, including Brave and the Bold in 2018. Then there's Batman and Superman, the Rebirth omnibus that was written by both Joshua Williamson and John Lewin. I never say that middle name correctly. Jean Lewin Yang. And so that could all be one book. And then we have Batman and Superman World's Finest, which is a very popular vote the past couple of years. We are now 40 plus issues deep into that run. So it absolutely could have a volume 1 because DC never goes bigger than 40 issues on a modern material omnibus.
But we got a deluxe that's coming for Batman Superman World's Finest that is coming out on the second week of June. But like the Poison Ivy deluxe, just because you look, like Crisis said perfectly, just because we got a deluxe coming does not necessarily mean you don't want that omnibus. And a lot of people have been wanting it in that size as well. And for the Batman Superman New 52 omnibus, we have already seen them print this out in the Earth 2 omnibus line, the first 4 issues, because that is technically the first time that Earth 2 has been spotlighted in that particular form. So we've already seen it in oversized. We just need to get the concurrent series all in omnibus format.
All right. Now, finally, we've made it this far. I finally get to talk about my favorite comic book character, Wonder Woman. And the great thing is, DC has been covering Wonder Woman so much, I don't even have to talk that much. So we have one more Golden Age volume for Wonder Woman. I cannot wait. This is all uncollected material. It's Golden Age Volume 7. Then guess what, baby? Silver Age is over and done with, which means the next Wonder Woman book we need is finally in color, Wonder Woman, the Bronze Age Volume 1. And that would start following the Diana Prince omnibus, and it would include the 12 Labors story arc, which is a very famous early Bronze Age story arc for her. Then we did not do a Wonder Woman in the 80s omnibus like we did for Batman and Superman, just because they have multiple titles. Wonder Woman does not. It would not take that many Bronze Age omnibuses to get us all the way to Post-Crisis. And of course, Post-Crisis, we have 3 books of George Perez on the book. Directly following George Perez and fitting between the Perez and the Byrne omnibus would be Wonder Woman by William Mester-Loebs and Mike Diodato, one of my favorite comic book runs of all time with those amazing Brian Boland covers. Then after the Byrne omnibus, we have Wonder Woman by Eric Luke. They might have to title it something else because Eric Luke certainly isn't a big seller on his own, but that fits directly before the Jimenez omnibus. Then we would, by the way, need a deluxe in here, which we no longer have because it's not omnibus size, which would be when Walt Simonson is on Wonder Woman. But then the next thing that we don't have in omnibus is the thing that would come directly before the Gail Simone omnibus, which would we called it Wonder Woman Amazon's Attack because that is the main storyline. But there's some other stuff that's been called, and we've had a lot of deluxes with little portions of that material, but it would basically be everything that fits after the Rucka book and before the Simone book. Finally, there's this little slice right after Simone and right before Flashpoint that is Wonder Woman and Superman by J. Michael Straczynski. He writes both of their titles in the final year leading up to Flashpoint. So much like we got that Mark Waid and Chris Samney Black Widow and Captain America book, this would be a great way to put Wonder Woman and Superman in one book and just cap off all that JMS material in one place. Could also be a deluxe.
Give me that William Messner-Loebs and Mike Deodato Jr. Wonder Woman. That's one of my most wanted.
Biker DC Gang Wonder Woman, Omar.
I love it, man. Introduction of Artemis. You got early Ed Benes artwork too. Mike Deodato Jr. studio. The guy was just blowing up everywhere at that time.
But it's amazing. We're so close. I mean, I know it's like 6 omnibuses and more if you count all the volumes of Bronze Age, but compared to where we were with Wonder Woman even 3 or 4 years ago, we've gotten so many big hits.
Right.
And if you go to the next slide, there's really not a lot of other post-Flashpoint Wonder Woman. So there is that first New 52 omnibus, which has the Azzarello and Cliff Chiang stuff. There's a little bit of Wonder Woman after that, enough actually for an omnibus that is by Meredith Finch. So that would be New 52 Volume 2 effectively. And then as we mentioned earlier on the Trinity side, there's Superman Wonder Woman during the New 52 as well. Then in Rebirth, of course, we very recently got an announcement that they're going to do the Greg Rucka, Nicola Scott, and Liam Sharp part of Rebirth, but there are more books and they're very easy to divide between creators. So directly following that, there's a Shea Fontana, James Robinson, and Steve Orlando run, mostly Robinson. The other two only really do an arc each. And then there is a subsequent run, again, that is very separated, so it feels easy to map them here, by Wilson, Orlando again, and Tamaki that I actually really enjoy. And then finally, there's Wonder Woman, The Infinite Frontier omnibus by Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad, which fits just prior to King. It could also include a lot of the Nubia stuff by Stephanie Williams that was in this period as well. And of course, we're not quite deep enough into Tom King's run yet to see where there will be an initial break point.
And that is it for Wonder Woman, which takes us to teams and groups. So this will all be in alphabetical order when you look at the poll.
All right, so this is all the teams that just did not have enough books to be their own slide. Challengers of the, and first we're going to do it by age. So these are things that start sometime in the Silver and Bronze Age. We've got Challengers of the Unknown, which had their own DC Archives line. Dial H for Hero, which we'd put all of Dial H in kind of any kind of Dial H adjacent book. Some people get very hot with me that we put Heroes Hotline and Hero in there. You don't have to think that. You could just vote for it for Dial H. But we wanted to say this could be a compendium of kind of like Heroes on the Hotline type of book. There's the Forever People. This could be a complete omnibus of all of their series. The Great Disaster featuring the Atomic Knights, which has been a showcase volume. The Inferior Five, which could collect all of their material pretty much from forever, including similar for the Metal Man omnibus. That could have every Metal Man story pretty much ever and fit it all into one omnibus. There's Night Force, the complete stories by Marv Wolfman starting in 1982 and on. There's Sea Devils, the Silver Age omnibus. There's the Secret Society of Super Villains, which mirrors the contents of the hardcovers 1 and 2 of that same series. And then there's Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters, again, which has been written across a couple of different eras, and we could fit it all into one book. Now let's look at what started post-crisis for teams and groups. We have Challengers of the Unknown starting from the post-crisis world, which has about 15 years in it, including material by Loeb, Sale, Grant, and Chaikin. We have Checkmate by Paul Kupperberg, a very favorite post-crisis series, and now that we've done so much collecting post-crisis, maybe we could have it. We have a personal favorite of mine, it makes very little sense, Sovereign 7 by Chris Claremont, which is technically creator-owned, so he would have to give them permission to reprint it, but come on, we want to see a whole omnibus of Chris Claremont writing some X-Men nonsense at DC. And then we have something on here, Watchmen Doomsday Clock. I think this would be really cool to have an omnibus alongside your Before Watchmen omnibus, collecting both 12-issue series, the Rebirth special and the Batman and Flash crossovers that led into Doomsday Clock. Would DC ever give up the opportunity to just pump this out as their own deluxes? Probably not, but a person can dream. Now we have the prior to Flashpoint books. We have one more Doom Patrol book that we need, and then we would have all of Doom Patrol covered in oversized. That is wild. There's also the Power Company by Kurt Piziak from the mid-2000s, actually early 2000s, and then another Checkmate book. This one by Greg Rucka, so you know that people love it. Dom's a big fan, and this could include JSA versus Cobra.
Real quick question, Peter.
Yeah.
For that Watchmen and Doomsday Clock book, or would you also include stuff like Mr. Oz and some other, like along with the, like we're thinking all of the lead up to Doomsday Clock would also be collected in here?
I think that would be cool. I think to like show the way that Dr. Manhattan and the Watchmen heroes kind of get like linked throughout Rebirth into the DC universe, to use it as like a prelude to Watchmen would be, or to Doomsday Clock would be really fun. And I know DC has the incentive to just keep printing all those things individually, and they could just give us a deluxe of that. But I just think it would be neat to read all as one. I would love to just read it all in one reading order.
The Arcudi was hinted at in the Giffen Omnibus, but again, if it's not in the catalog nor solicitations, it will be in this. If you enjoyed the Greg Rucka Batman run and you like the character of Sasha, she does play a big role in Checkmate.
Okay. Then we have teams in the New 52 era, Stormwatch, which is the post-Wildstorm, so it's fully integrated into the DC universe. The Trinity of Sin, which we've seen part of their stuff collected in as part of crossovers, but their full series have not been collected. So that's Phantom Stranger, Pandora, and The Question. They could all fit into one book. And then a book that usually is the lowest placing book on the entire DC poll, which is The Movement and the Green Team, the New 52 Omnibus. I guess nobody's got that on their wish list. In the Rebirth, we have The Terrifics from the New Age of Heroes by Jeff Lemire and Jean Luen Yang. I absolutely love that book, led by Mr. Terrific, and it's just such a great family feel good comic book. And then also there is a run of Wildcats and Grifter, largely chaired by Matthew Rosenberg, who's a huge fan of Wildstorm, and that happens from 2021 to 2023. It includes urban legend stories that lead into his 12 issues run, as well as some other backup stories. Now we're going through solo characters. Get ready for Crisis Micro Machines. This is going to be quick. We have Adam Strange, the modern omnibus that would start from 1972 and on. It could have Bronze Age all the way through Flashpoint. We have Ambush Bug from the 1980s and on. We have Amethyst, Princess of Gem World. It could be 1983 and on. It could extend all the way to the New 52, quite possibly. We have Angel and Ape, the complete omnibus, starting in 1968. We have Animal Man, the Vertigo Years, Volume 3, which is all we need to finish up, by Delano and Prosser. We have Eric, Son of Thunder, if you mentioned it in the chat, by Roy and Dan Thomas, the complete series. We have Ariane, Lord of Atlantis, by Paul Kuppenberg and Jan Dersima. It could include the Immortal mini if you so chose. Then we had some help from a friend about the Atom. So this is a very well mapped set of Atom books. Atom in the Silver Age, which would actually need 2 volumes. Atom's the Bronze Age, which would be 1970 through 1983, cutting off just before the Power of the Atom and sort of the Atom stuff, because that kind of all wraps together into one big story from 1983 to 1999 that could end by including Chronos, which kind of has the end of that story in it. And then we have Atom, the all-new Atom by Gareth Timon, which would be 2006 to 2008. Omar, let's keep going to the B's. We have Black Adam, the modern era omnibus. He's had a few series on his own, but if you want to see all of Black Adam stuff in one book, we could map it that way. Could have put it on the villain side, I suppose. We have Black Lightning, the complete omnibus. I would really enjoy that. If you got all of Black Lightning solo material into one place, you could do it all in one book. It would pretty much be everything he's ever done outside of a team. We could have Blue Devil all in one omnibus from the 80s. That's just a single series. Booster Gold. So this is another one that proved to be controversial because there's a lot of Booster Gold material from 2007 and forward. Some people are like, well, just put a John's book on there and then put a New 52 book. Because Booster Gold is all timey-wimey and because Jeff Johns and Keith Giffen returned to him multiple times, we're just calling it Volume 1. And when DC finally makes that Volume 1, then we will decide if there's a reason to map all the rest of the stuff separately. But there's also Booster Gold, the classic stuff, which is his stuff immediately following Crisis in the 1980s. Then we have Captain Atom by Carrie Bates. That would be Volume 1 of 2 because it was a pretty lengthy series. And Captain Atom, the Modern Years, which would pretty much collect everything of his before Flashpoint, his brief incursion into the Wildstorm universe, and then his New 52 series, and then even the death of Captain Atom. Really, altogether, it makes one big omnibus. Captain Carradine is an amazing Zoo Crew, which has been a showcase volume. Chase, the complete Cameron Chase omnibus, which we've had in a complete trade paperback, but not an omnibus. Congo Bill and the Forgotten Heroes. This is one that came from reader suggestions. There was a Forgotten Heroes team that had a lot of heroes from the Golden and Silver Ages that started appearing a few times in the Bronze Age. This could pretty much collect all of Congo Bill before then, and also the forgotten material of those other heroes. That includes some early pre-Vertigo Animal Man stuff that really has no reason to be anywhere else. Same for Cave Carson. Then we could have 2 books of the Creeper, the Bronze Age omnibus and the Modern Age omnibus, and then Cyborg. Cyborg has had a number of different modern years series. Could they be collected each in their own omnibus? Maybe, but we wanted to give you one big vote if you're a big Cyborg fan. So this could have all the work by Walker, Semper, and Wolfen, everything from 2015 onward, New 52, and Rebirth. For Damage, there's 2 parts of this material. There's Damage in the 90s by Tom Joyner and Bill Marmon, and then there's Damage in the modern era, which would be part of that new Age of Heroes, and that was by Robert Venditti and Tony Daniel. Let's keep going. Omar. Next, we have Deadman, the modern omnibus, because that first Deadman omnibus stretches pretty far, but to keep going, we would need another one. And actually, maybe even a volume 2 after that, but this would be able to collect pretty far into his modern material. Then there's a number of Demon books. We have Demon Intrigue in the Bronze Age omnibus by Jack Kirby. We have Demon Intrigue in the Post-Crisis omnibus, Volume 1, which would be AKA by Grant and Smekis. Volume 2 would be Ennis, but we didn't want to break it into 2 because the mapping breakpoint is ambiguous. We have Demon Intrigue in Blood of the Demon by John Byrne and Will Pfeiffer. Could this start a little bit before that? Oh, typo, nobody caught it. Demon Driven Out, 20,023. It certainly could if you want it to.
Technically, that's not a
Demon Knights from the New New 52, a series I like a whole lot. Dreamer, I want to give a special shout out to our mapping helper from the Near Mint Condition community, Sauron, for mapping that for us. We have all of Dreamer's appearances, a lot of it written by her TV actress, Nicole Maines. That would be from 2021 on. We could have an Elongated Man Omnibus, Frankenstein Agent of Shade, one of my favorite New 52 series that was largely by Jeff Lemire. And then we could have Grifter and Voodoo, both Wildstorm graduates who each have their own brief ongoing series in the New 52, and it'd be easy to collect them together. We could also, for the sake of Wildstorm fans, throw in the Team 7 New 52 series, but there's a couple of places that could be. Moving on, we have Hawk and Dove, the post-crisis omnibus. Some of that might wind up, I think, in the Teen Titans omnibus line, if I'm not wrong, but Hawk and Dove also have their own material, and so this could kind of be an anthology of everything Hawk and Dove. We have Our Man by Tom Pear in the late 90s and 2001. We have 2 Human Target books. One would be his Bronze Age material up until 1991, and then one, of course, would be the Peter Milligan Vertigo series. There's 2 iVampire books, one the classic iVampire material by J.M. DeMatteis, and then one his New 52 omnibus by Joshua Hale Fialkov and Andrea Sorrentino. We have Jonah Hex. I know people have been waiting for it in the chat. We could have a Jonah Hex the classic omnibus. I know people want us to do multiple volumes of this, but we just don't know where it would break. We don't know where, if it would break for Hex being its own volume, if it would just continue to continuously collect through that. So we're just calling it Jonah Hex the Classic Omnibus Volume 1. If you want to see your boy Jonah Hex collect an omnibus, centralize your votes there rather than splintering them into multiple books. And then, of course, we've got his New 52 material, but if you want the 2 volumes prior to the New 52 material, we have to start with Jonah Hex, Palmiotti, and Gray Volume 1 of 2 that would start collecting from 2006. Then we have Kamandi, the Last Boy on Earth, of course, very famously in the 1970s, but also there were some 1990s material there. We continue from the Kirby Omnibus. There is Kid Eternity, the Complete Comics, Loba by Keith Giffen and Alan Grant, Volume 1, which would probably pretty closely mirror, I'm looking on my shelf, but it's too far away to grab the Lobo Compendium, but there's so much Lobo material. Maybe we could get an omnibus in addition to Compendium. I would also be happy to have a Compendium Volume 2. Madame Xanadu by Matt Wagner, which is a series that would make one chunky omnibus. It could also include her early material from the Bronze Age because it's not that big of an omnibus to begin with, in the same way the Dini Zatanna omnibus included some non-Dini material. Then Major Bummer by John Arcudi and John Mack. Can't say I know anything about that one, but there it is on the poll. Manhunter by John Ostrander, Kim Yell, and Stephen Grant. And then separately, Manhunter Kate Spencer by Mark Andreyko from the mid-2000s. I know that's a really popular one, including with Tom. Amazing Man, which technically starts with an apostrophe, but that would mess up everything on the poll. We just got it here under M. Metamorpho, who has Silver Age material. We've seen it collected in DC Finest. And then Mr. Terrific, who's really become a favorite of mine. The challenge with him is he's so tied up with the JSA. What would you include? Well, we sat down and did a light mapping to see. So it could have some New 52 stuff, his year 1. It could include the Terrifics. There's a little bit of flexibility there, but it could be basically everything Mr. Terrific, since he's a pretty modern character. Let's keep going past the M's, and I'll take a quick sip of water.
Why don't you take that break and I can do this?
No, I'm good. OMAC by Kirby, Ruckenburn, and Jones from 1974 and on. Peacemaker, the Complete Omnibus, which we've seen a lot of the classic Peacemaker stuff in DC Finest, which is behind me. But then this could just continue collecting pretty much everything Peacemaker all the way to the modern age if they were willing to put a mature reader's label on it. Plastic Man, we need to collect across 3 different eras. He's got a ton of Golden Age material, almost as much as Wonder Woman. Then he has the Silver and Bronze Age material. That's actually not that much. It could be rolled up all into one big bouncy book. And then we have Plastic Man, the Modern Age, starting in 1988 and on. Promethea, of course, some people would like this to be the long-rumored but never published in materia edition format. If you want it that way, great. You should vote for this anyway. It'd be an oversized single book collection of Promethea. The Question, Renee Montoya has plenty of material just in that 4-year period before we even get into New 52. A lot of Rich is written by Greg Rucka. We have Ragman, the Complete Omnibus, The Ray, the 90s Omnibus, which is by Christopher Priest, Red Tornado, and Primal Force, combining 2 series that cross 25 years there that include Red Tornado. As we continue to Resurrection Man, one that I personally mapped. This could be the complete saga by Abnett and Lanning, including the original series, which has art from Butch Goyce, all the way to the New 52 series. Richard Dragon and Omnibus from the 1970s. Rip Hunter Time Master from the 1950s and on. Rose and Thorn, the complete omnibus with all of her appearances. Sandman Wesley Dodds from the Golden Age, 1935 to 1946, or no, I'm sorry, 1939 to 1946. Sideways, many people in chat were looking for it. Here it is. Sideways series himself was kind of small, but he's kind of the tentpole of what's remaining to collect from the New Age of Heroes. We've already previously mentioned Damage and the Terrifics, but these are the other shorter series. So Brimstone, the Immortal Men, New Challengers, and the Unexpected. They could all fit into a book, but Size is the most substantial and probably most popular one there, except for, of course, Silencer, which was the last remaining New Age of Heroes series we haven't talked about. That was a pretty substantial run by Dan Abnett, John Romita Jr., and Ken Marion. Then we have The Spirit by Cook, Evanier, and Plug. I know a lot of you are big fans of Spirit material. Stanley and His Monster from the 1960s and on, and Stargirl, a complete saga of all the major Stargirl solo and significant JSA series starting from 1999. We're almost through the solo heroes. Now we have Starman. Of course, we have those 2 Starman by James Robinson compendiums now, and we've had it in hardcover, but I believe, Omar, if I'm not mistaken, those are standard size hardcovers.
They are standard size.
Yeah, so this would be our first chance to have it in oversized. Then there's Starman by Roger Stern and Len Straczewski, which is actually prior to Robinson, 1988 through 1992, pretty substantial. And then Starman in the Golden Age, if we want to rewind all the way to the stuff that inspired James Robinson for his Starman book. Then we have Titan's Raven here. I have it listed twice just because she is a solo hero. Technically, that Starfire book is not actually on the poll. It finally was pointed out to me by astute eyes that Starfire 1977 has nothing to do with Starfire from the Teen Titans. It is a DC Swords and Sorcery book, and so it is mapped instead in Swords and Sorcery. That title is not on the poll. We have 2 Tom Strong books, Tom Strong by Alan Moore, and then Tom Strong's Terrific Tales, which can include Terrific Tales and other minis. Vigilante by Marv Wolfman and Paul Kupperberg, which I just saw somebody on Reddit speculating, would they ever do an omnibus of this? Maybe, if you vote for it. Warlord by Mike Grell, Volume 3. Of course, we've already got the first 2 volumes, but nothing's guaranteed. If you want another Warlord book in that awesome, cool, toothy paper, you've got to vote for it on the poll. And then finally, Zatanna, now that we've got the Paul Dini stuff, which actually starts a little bit before Dini, we could have all of her classic stuff all in one book, and in just 2 books on the shelf, like magic, we could have all of Zatanna on yourself in omnibus.
Pizzazz.
Oh. And at this moment, I just want to remind people to hit that like button. Crisis, you take a sip of water. I'm going to run through the villains right now. So we decided to separate these by the Batman villains, of course. Each one will have its own omnibus. So you have Clayface, Killer Croc, Man-Bat, Mr. Freeze, Penguin, Ra's al Ghul, Riddler, Scarecrow, and Talia even getting her own Omni. And again, thank you to the mappers for putting that together. Then we have Bizarro, Brainiac, Darkseid. Now, Bizarro is only the Silver and Bronze Age. There's enough material for present day and modern age. Brainiac, Darkseid, Doomsday Omnibus, and Eclipso, the classic omnibus, not to be confused with the Darkness Within. The Joker by Matthew Rosenberg. They could put stuff in there from the Tiny and Run. Joker to Modern Age Omnibus. Cobra, the complete saga, including Danger Trail. Lex Luthor, the classic omnibus. We have a Joker classic omnibus. Why not a Lex Luthor? Secret Society of Super Villains. Hell yes. That could include the Sinestro and Captain Comet material. And Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday.
Kristen on a Tuesday.
Moving on to anthologies, which I believe, are you okay, Chris?
Yeah, I'm just taking it away. So look, we called anthologies anything that would collect multiple series or multiple heroes in one place. So Action Comics, this, even though we have Action Comics Golden Age by Superman in the Superman Golden Age, there's always backup stories, and they're not in that. So Zatara is one of the major ones, but we call them the pulp heroes of the Golden Age. This could start collecting that. Similar for Adventure Comics, the anthology stories. So there's a lot of anthology stories in Adventure Comics that are not superhero stories, and so this could collect them all in one place. Then something we've seen solicited in the past but never got, Detective Comics before Batman. Of course, there's 26 issues that we could put into that book. Star Spangled Comics, which is another book from the 1940s. Strange Adventures, the Golden Age Omnibus, which features Captain Comet. So that story is kind of completed in the 1970s, so we could jump ahead at the end to include that. House of Mystery starts in the Golden Age, and even though we have a complete Silver Age accounting for House of Mystery, or is it Bronze? I forget. But anyway, we don't have the Golden Age material. And similar for Mystery in Space, at least the non-superhero stories in there. Let's continue to Silver Age. So Brave and the Bold, the early years. So Brave and the Bold, of course, is famous for introducing a lot of long-running DC franchises like Suicide Squad and Hawkman, but there were a lot of other stories in there, some of which just existed on their own, or some of which were serialized only in Brave and the Bold. Then we have House of Mystery, the Silver Age Omnibus Volume 1, and House of Secrets, the Silver Age Omnibus Volume 1. My Greatest Adventure Volume 1, which has pre-Doom Patrol stories, because of course they take over that book. Showcase, the Silver Age Omnibus. A lot of people just think that Showcase should be broken up across all the characters that exist in the title, but if you want to see all of Showcase collected all sequentially, this would be the book for you. Similar for Strange Adventures, the Silver Age Omnibus. Similar for Tales of Expected, the Silver Age Omnibus, Unexpected rather, and also the Witching Hour, which starts right at that Witching Hour between the Silver and Bronze Ages. Now we get into Bronze Age. There's cool stuff. This was a reader comment, and I had to go and research it. DC science fiction graphic novel series. There was one series of 7 graphic novels that were more based on licensed work that were not officially a science fiction series, but were kind of science fiction. Then there were a specific 7 books branded as the DC science fiction graphic novel series. To the extent that DC could get the rights to reprint them, it would be cool to see them all in one book. There's also DC Special Blue Ribbon Digest if you want to see all of those in one book. The DC Special Series, similar if you want to see it all in one book. Here's that Swords and Sorceries book. It has The Claw, Beowulf, Starfire, Swords of Sorcery. It could have Hercules Unbound if you want, but these are kind of the more traditional Sandals and Swords and Sorcery books, and they could all be together. I think we have Larry's Library to thank for getting that on the poll. Forbidden Tales of the Dark Mansion, the Bronze Age Omnibus, Ghosts, the Bronze Age Omnibus, House of Mystery, the Bronze Age Omnibus Volume 4. Yes, there's more still to collect, and Secrets of Sinister House, the Bronze Age Omnibus. Now, post-crisis, Action Comics Weekly, which went on for about a year, and so a year of weekly issues which had multiple stories in them, that really could be a pretty chunky omnibus, especially if we leave in the Superman material, which we would have to because the Superman omnibus line skipped it. It actually happens between Byrne and the pre-Triangle Superman books. There's also a substantial amount of Green Lantern material in there, Black Canary, and a lot more. Brave and the Bold, the team-ups by Mark Waid et al. That was a Brave and the Bold series that ran for about 4 years. That was a different team-up kind of in every issue or arc. DC Challenge and the Commandi Challenge, where a different creator team took over each subsequent issue and extended it from the prior one. DC's done that twice, one in the 80s and one in the 2010s. We could get it in one book. DC Focus, the complete stories that could have Hard Time, Kinetic, Fraction, and Touch. House of Mystery, the Vertigo Years by Lila Sturges. Legends of the DC Universe, 1997 to 2001, which was an anthology series. The Secret Origins Omnibus, because there's so many Secret Origins issues in that series, and a lot of them are spread out individually to their individual character omnibuses, but it would be fun to have an all Origins omnibus. The Tomorrow Stories by Alan Moore et al. It could have all of the ABC Comics anthology series. Could this also include Terra Obscura? There was a lengthy debate about it on Reddit when we were working on mapping, and folks said, yeah, it could. And then this one was one that I put on there. We'll see if anybody votes for it or if I'm just a loser. Weird and Cosmic by Jim Starlin. So Jim Starlin did so much stuff across the 80s, 90s, and 2000s at DC that kind of fit together, centering around his character, the Weird. But this could include Weird, Hardcore Station, 2000s material from Mystery in Space, Strange Adventures, basically the whole Jim Starlin weird and cosmic journey that he took his characters through. And then finally, post-Flashpoint, just a couple to note here. The DC Pride Anthology Omnibus. We went through every DC Pride book to figure out exactly what stories would need to be collected to map this one. And also, we could have a Dawn of DC minibus that would have all the miniseries that launched at the beginning of 2023, including the full We Are Legends line.
All right. Let's take
now we're going to talk about some Elseworlds and alternate Earths. So we already have talked about some Batman ones. Batman Gotham by Gaslight, Gotham by Gaslight now has had 2 additional series. They were 6 issues each, but they were double length, and they're really, really good. I love Kryptonian Age and League for Justice, so that could all be combined into one book with the original Gotham by Gaslight. Then we have DC Comics Bombshells, which would be really cool to see in an omnibus together. DC Manga Batman Justice Buster and One Operation Joker, and also DC Manga Superman versus Meshi. We have DC versus Aliens versus Predator, the rare book that appears both on the Marvel poll and the DC poll. Let's see if it does better on the DC poll than the Marvel poll. It would have all of the times that DC heroes have fought either the alien or the Predator or both of them. DC versus Vampires, which is of course its own side universe that's from 2021 and on. And then we have Earth 2, the New 52 Omnibus Volume 2 that would have World's End and Society. Maybe that's 2 different books, but we just put it on here as one. Why force you to split your vote? And then people have mentioned it multiple times in the stream. The Earth 1, the complete graphic novels. We didn't try to break this up into should it be the Trinity and not the Trinity? Should it be Wonder Woman, Superman, and everybody else? No, let's just say it's Earth 1, and no matter what permutation you want to see collected in omnibus, whether you just want to see it character by character or you want to see it in chunks, this is the one to vote for. Okay, now we have Green Lantern, the animated series omnibus. We have Kingdom Come, the complete saga, because it's not just Kingdom Come. DC has returned to that many times. People pointed out last year, this could even have some stuff from Mark Waid's World's Finest, because he revisits Kingdom Come. It would be every time DC has gone back to the well of that Kingdom Come continuity. We have a Superman Elseworlds Omnibus Volume 1 solicited. We could certainly do a Volume 2. Tales of the Dark Multiverse. This is an interesting one. There are all those Dark Multiverse one-shots in 2019 to 2020. This could include them as well as the issues or original stories that they extended. There's Tangent Comics and Tangent Superman's Reign from 1997 to 2009. There's Tiny Titans by Art Baltazar. There's Wing Family Adventures, the Webtoon comics, hugely popular, that we could get into an omnibus. And then finally, we could have an all-in-one Young Animal omnibus that would maybe require 2. It would be an all-in-2 with all of the Young Animal line. We've seen oversize of Doom Patrol, but not of Mother Panic, Shade the Changing Girl, Cave Carson, and of course, Milk Wars. Omar, anything you want to chip in before we continue?
Kingdom Come, the complete saga. Woo! All right, let's
All
move
right.
on.
That's Return, Thy Kingdom
gotta
Come,
go through-
and Batman.
Oh, this is Omar, actually. I got another breath.
All right, take a breath. And yeah, I'm sorry we're flying through here. I have an interview at 6 o'clock. I just want to make sure we get it on time and get you all voting too. Milestone, the complete omnibus. Yes, we've had them in compendium, but this really deserves the omnibus treatment. And I cannot believe we live in an era where we have the complete milestone era in a collected edition when 5 years ago, there was nothing. And Kid Eternity should include Lemire and Machine Go Run. Thank you so much for that. Milestone Static, the original year's omnibus, so separating just Static by himself. And then the Milestones Returns by Joseph Illich.
Yeah, which has been really fun if you've been following it because it's so reverential of the classic stuff, but it's got really great art.
That is it. That's it for Milestone. And we're moving on to the Sandman universe. Well collected, but there's still a lot of things. Take it away.
So there's some classic material we could hit. We could collect all of Black Orchid by Dick Foreman. We could even add the Black Orchid material from the 70s. Sandman Mystery Theater, which we finally have all collected in compendium, but now, of course, we'd like to see it in omnibus. Sandman Universe, the Vertigo Year's Companion, because there were so many things to the side of Sandman. Most of them were labeled Sandman Presents, but in the same way that we have the Dead Boy Detectives omnibus, that omnibus could take care of everything else that existed to the side of Sandman. And then finally, we would have Sandman Universe, The Dreaming. That's the last of the classic material we haven't seen. Dreaming ran for 60 issues. We've never seen it collected past the first trade, so it would be amazing to get that in anything. Omnibus, companion, I would take it any way we could get it. Then we have modern material in the Sandman universe. So we have Lucifer by Holly Black, which was in the Rebirth period. And then we have all the Sandman universe relaunch from 2018. They each are about a small omnibus size, each one of them. So Books of Magic, House of Whispers, Lucifer by Dan Waters, which is amazing. The Dreaming by Cy Sperrier and G. Willow Wilson, which was absolutely incredible. One of my favorite series from those years. And then there's some modern miniseries that are Dead Boy Detectives and Nightmare Country, which has the very remarkable name of Tinian on it. So that absolutely could be an omnibus on its own. Let's keep going because now we get to the one we've been waiting for and I have to go through it so fast. So look, you have to trust me. I am the biggest Wildstorm freak there is out there other than Dark Angel, who is the moderator of the Wildstorm community on Facebook. We've covered everything. We've got Backlash. We've got a companion for all the Wildstorm books not explicitly mentioned otherwhere. We've got Deathblow, which could take us all the way to pre-Flashpoint with Deathblow. We've got Divine Right, which was by Jim Lee. We've got DV8, which was kind of like the mean bad version of Gen 13. We've got a number of Wildstorm events, including Deathmate, which is Wildstorm versus Valiant. We've got Fire from Heaven, and we've got the original Wildstorm crossover, Wildstorm Rising. Gen 13, some people made some noise of oh, why do you have a Gen 13 by this person or that person? Because we've never seen DC collected at all. If you want to see it get collected, vote for it. Generally, I will give you a spoiler if you're not a Near Mint Condition Patreon member. This is the Wildstorm book that tends to do the best. So I think Gen 13 might be the one that we have the most chance of seeing in the top 60. But you never know. It depends on how you vote, including for Marvel versus Wildstorm, which can include the issue 13s of all of those Heroes Reborn series that crossed over with Wildstorm. Wildstorm Mr. Majestic, which would have his whole journey, including his own series as he joined the DC Universe briefly in the early 2000s. We have the big team book, Stormwatch Volume 1, which is before Warren Ellis took it over. So it would be everything before that existing compendium. Then we have Wildstorm Stormwatch The Road to Authority, which is the Ellis material that would exactly match the compendium. Then Wildstorm Team 7. Team 7 came back a number of times. There's also Team 0, Team 1, Gem 12. That could all be one book. Wildstorm Union, a pretty niche hero with Mark Teixeira art that I love in Wildstorm, right? He was the artist, Omar. Then we have Wildstorm Wildcats Covert Action Teams Volume 1, which would pretty much map the existing compendium on our shelves, but it could include some miniseries that aren't even in that compendium to sweeten the deal. And then we have Wildcats Covert Action Teams Volume 2 by Alan Moore et al. Would we really need a Volume 2 and Volume 3? Maybe, but we're trying to simplify the votes of Wildstorm stuff. Maybe you can do better on the poll. And then finally, we have Wildcats Grifter, because he had his own individual series a couple of times in the 90s.
And he's just so cool.
So now we get into Wildstorm, the DC years, which starts in 1999. Top 10 by Alan Moore and Gene Ha, which Lars finally got me to buy the compendium. So now, of course, there has to be an omnibus. Wildstorm Authority Companion, which is the Monarchy versus the Establishment, two brief, short-lived series that spun out of the Authority. Also, there's enough room for us to have an Authority Volume 3, which would have Lost Year Prime, Oxmoor, and World's End. Wildstorm, the Authority Midnighter, which would have all of his Wildstorm material and his post-Flashpoint material all in one book, including with Apollo. Wildstorm event, Armageddon and Revelations were all of the DC years events that could have Captain Atom, Dream War, Worldstorm, Armageddon, etc. Then we could have Gen 13, Armageddon and World's End, which would be the Gail Simone Gen 13 run. We could have Stormwatch, the DC years, which is Team Achilles, PhD, and World End. They were separate from the party at this point. We could have The Wildstorm by Warren Ellis, which is, of course, that Rebirth era, totally separate Wildstorm continuity. We have Welcome to Tranquility by Gail Simone, another popular series some people mentioned in the chat. We could have all of Wetworks, maybe in one book, probably would take two, but vote for it and then we could see. And then finally, there's Wildcats, the DC years, which is wildly popular, including a lot of Joe Casey and Scott Lobdell stuff. That includes Wildcats 2.0, 3.0, Nemesis, and all of the Wildcat stuff through World's End. Clearly, we would need 2, maybe 3 omnibuses to get through all of that.
Man, that is crazy how much there was.
Vertigo, we are not going to read these titles one by one. We're just going to explain. We went through all of Vertigo, and anything that was longer than a deluxe, we put on the poll. We did not do deep research into DC, if DC had printing rights, just if it wasn't being printed anywhere else, we put it on here. I'll just point out a few things. Some really astute, very cool readers pointed out that there could be a really cool kind of all-in-one Peter Milligan Vertigo book for all of his own miniseries, Screamer, Extremist, Egypts, and the Minx. We have that in one book. And then we also have a similar book for Jamie Delano for things like Outlaw Nation, Hell Eternal, Tainted, and more. So if you're just kind of looking for an anthology approach to Milligan or Delano, those are those. Then all these other books, I'm not going to read every one. I'm going to jump down to Fables. So Fables, we did not try to map past a volume 1 in the main Fables line, but we did put a book in for every sideline Fables book that was long enough to have its own omnibus. So Ferris, Jack of Fables, and The Wolf Among Us all separately got their own books. But if you're looking for a main collection of the mainline Fables series, you want to vote for Fables by Bill Willingham, Volume 1. And as we'll continue, you'll see there's lots more Vertigo. Sorry, repeated Wolf Among Us there. FBB, a book that I really enjoy. But again, if it was long enough that it could be longer than a deluxe, we gave it its own entry on the poll. Sweet Tooth by Jeff Lemire is in there as well.
And Sweet Tooth would include the miniseries that is not collected in the hardcovers, deluxe edition.
Which would be a good carrot on a stick to try to get us to buy that omnibus. And then finally, just the rest of it, including Unwritten by Mike Carey and Peter Gross, which I know we were struggling just to get in the compendium. So maybe it's a dream to see it in omnibus, but if you voted for it, it could happen. And is there no Transmet omnibus?
No,
it's just Absolute and trade paperbacks. And
wow.
That's it.
Okay. Well, there you go. We could have could it fit all into one?
Mm-hmm.
It would have to be a thick one, like Why the Last Man. Yeah. All right, let's
wait, Omar. Can I add one real quick thing to Vertigo?
As long as you make it quick, go for it.
Yeah, man. We've got a lot of these coming back now with 100 Bullets because the Vertigo reprint, imprint, as many of you might not know, it is back at DC. So the chances of these coming out in larger formats, I think, are much higher now than they were a couple of years ago.
Has increased.
A little trickier too, because like sometimes it's creator owned, like we've seen in the case of Pride of Baghdad with Brian K. Vaughan. The war comics.
So you've helped us find enough of these over the years, gentle readers and viewers, that we've now put them all into their own slides. So there's 3 different eras of Black Hawk. The modern era one only is post-crisis modern era, because then there also was Black Hawks in the New 52 Shadow War. That kind of is all of the Army-esque New 52 series, which did eventually cross over with each other. That's kind of the only place it makes sense to put them all together. There's also Boy Commandos, Enemy Ace, Haunted Tank, which people are asking where it was earlier. Yes. Here it is. It could have stories from across multiple titles, including Jihad Combat, and Losers, the complete stories, which would include stories from Jihad Combat and Our Fighting Forces. More War, Men of War, the complete series from 1977 on. Our Army at War story, that shouldn't be another bullet. It's just saying it could omit the stories from other Omni-line, like Sergeant Rock does appear in Our Army at War, but Our Army at War was a title. So this could just be collection of everything in the title, because we have 2 Sergeant Rock books right there. We have a Silver Age Omnibus starting in 1959. Clearly that would be multiple volumes potentially. And then also a modern era omnibus from 1992 and on. There's 2 different runs of Unknown Soldier here. One by the modern Vertigo book by Dysart and Ponticelli. The other one, the Bronze Age Omnibus, that could continue all the way through his 1997 series, The War That Time Forgot, the Silver Age Omnibus, and Weird War Tales, the Bronze Age Omnibus. And we also have Western comics, which again, you've helped us find enough of that they needed their own slide. So we have Batlash. We have a compilation of different DC Western comics starring Johnny Thunder and the Wyoming Kid. We have Jonah Hex, the Classic Years Omnibus, which we've already seen listed separately in the Solo Hero slides, and also the other Jonah Hex book. We have Scalp Hunter, which would be a pre-crisis weird Western Tales Omnibus, which mostly was Scalp Hunter, and also Tomahawk Volume 1 from 1950 on.
And other
now he's got some stuff we didn't know where to put it. Fox and Crow, Helix, the DC 90s cyberpunk comics, Impact comics from the 1990s. Joe Kubert's tour, added from friend of the channel, Josh Greathouse, who made sure we got it on here. Mad Magazine Tales, calculated to drive you mad. I know there's a Mad Magazine collection coming out pretty soon, but like, would DC do it as an omnibus? Maybe just including the cartoons and not articles. Who knows? More Fun Comics, and Nathaniel Dusk, Gem, Silverblade, and Other Tales by Gene Colan, which was another reader contributed book. Then we have Piranha Press, The Complete Stories. That was actually a pretty long-running imprint. It could maybe use 2 volumes to get through all of it, including probably the best-known one, I think, is Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children. There's Plop Magazine. There's Rex the Wonder Dog. Many of you have mentioned it. We did not forget. There's Scribbly and the Red Tornado by Sheldon Mayer, the Golden Age Omnibus. Shadow Pack by Willingham and Sturgis, actually a pretty popular book. Maybe it should have been elsewhere. I just don't know where to categorize it. Feel free to heckle me in the comments. Sugar and Spike Volume 1, all the cartoon books from the Silver Age. Wasteland by Ostrander and Close. Young Heroes in Love, which I know is technically creator owned or at least creator participatory, so we need permission to get in an omnibus. And finally, Young Love, the Silver Age Omnibus, Volume 1.
Warner Brother family IP. All these cartoons.
All right, I'm going to do this as fast as the Animaniacs sing the countries of the world song. Animaniacs, we could have several Cartoon Network books, Action Pack, Block Party, cartoons. We could have Cartoon Networks Presents, because everything that's a Cartoon Network owned or at least participatory properly now fits under the WB umbrella. Dexter's Laboratory, Fringe, the comic books. We could have a Future Quest omnibus. We could have Hanna-Barbera of everything from the Rebirth forward. So could that have things like Flintstones in it that got its own deluxe? Could have Snagglepuss, or would you just want the team-ups like Batman and Elmer Fudd? Completely up to you what you see in that book when you vote for it. We have Johnny Quest, the Comico years, because Johnny Quest is a WB property. And then finally, due to your incredibly huge popular demand, we have mapped all of Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies, the Dell years from 1940 to 1962. Obviously, that would take multiple books. Looney Tunes, the Bronze Age from 1975 to 1982. That would be AKA the Western publishing years. And then we have Looney Tunes, the modern years at DC, which would be from 1994 to 2024. Again, obviously multiple volumes. There was several long-running Looney Tunes books at DC. But that's only taking us to L. Mortal Kombat, as James Abel pointed out to me, is a WB property, so it belongs here as well. Pinky and the Brain, Samurai Jack, Scooby-Doo. Last year was our mapping project, so we've got the Batman and Scooby-Doo mysteries from 2021 on. We have Scooby-Doo Team Up with the DC Heroes from 2013 to 2019. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, Where Are You? The original years from 1970 and on. That includes Gold, Keith Charlton, Marvel, Harvey, Archie, et al. We would just keep cruising through them. Maybe it's an omnibus, maybe it's a series of deluxes. No one knows unless you vote. We have Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? From 2010 and on, and Scooby-Doo, the DC years, which would be 1997 and on. So the actual order there is Where Are You, then DC years, and then the modern Where Are You. Finally, Steven Universe and the Crystal Gems, a series that I have every single issue of here in my house, and Tiny Toons Adventures, which actually, reader comment, this did not exist in the United States. It was only a magazine in the United States, but in the UK, it was original comic book content that has never been collected.
Wow.
We've got one more group, and that's pure licensed IP. And honestly, DC mostly only does creator-owned or WP stuff, so there's not a lot of licensed stuff. And not all this could even be called really licensed. There's The Adventures of Bob Hope, which is like a life rights license. Same for Adventures of Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. Bet you didn't know they existed. Then there's Atari Force, which is a team up of various Atari video game characters. Yeah. There's Doc Savage. There's Tarzan, the DC years, different than the Tarzan material that we put in the Marvel poll. By the way, Tarzan actually had a lot of stuff prior to those DC years, and I researched it really deeply. And then I realized since Tarzan isn't a current DC character, we probably shouldn't put those on the poll. So this would just be the DC period, which include Korak and the Tarzan family. Then there's the Shadow, the complete DC comics, because he's technically owned elsewhere. And finally, Veeds of Visitors Are Our Friends by Bates and Kuppenberg, proving that Tigereyes really does read everything, because he caught a typo in this, the last line in the entire slideshow.
Creator centric.
Oh no, I lied. But we're not going to read all of these. Look, the creator books historically don't do really well, except for Alex Toth. If you want to see a creator book, and some of these creator books are artist centric, some of them are centric to a writer who has a lot of short series that could be collected all into one place, like Keith Giffen. Go crazy if you want to vote for them. The two I'll point out here is Tom King. We've historically always split them into two. There's Tom King's nominally in continuity stuff like Omega Man, Mr. Miracle, Supergirl, and Penguin. DC, of course, has a heavy incentive to print these as their own deluxe editions, but you could want an omnibus versus his stuff that kind of stands alone, like Rorschach, Human Target, Jenny Sparks, and Danger Street. It could have DC heroes in them, but they're quite explicitly outside of continuity. And that's creator owned. So now, are you ready to vote?
Are you ready to vote, people? Woo! We did it. That's enough of this lie. My gosh. Okay. You're not supposed to see that. Sorry about that. You're not supposed to see my background either, but that's the way I live. On the edge. Thank you, Crisis. Oh my gosh, you went time and a half today. Like, wow. That was amazing. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I'm gonna show you all how to vote. James, if you don't mind, please clip this so we can show people later. I just want to make sure that everybody knows. All right. So how to vote. You go to this website that I'm going to share here in a little bit. And it will be in the description of the video if you're watching this later. I'll let you know when to refresh if you're watching this live. You put in your email address, which is just omariscool@whatever.com. This is a drop down. This is not like the bullets that we have for the 5. So I'm just going to pick at random here. Oh, although ambush bug would be nice. And there we go. And oh my goodness, I'm only picking A's. Why is that, I wonder? You can only pick 10, by the way. So again, this is much like the previous voting. It's all weighted voting, so your first choice will get the most points. Did we miss your favorite book? Please put it in here in case I've seen some comments already in the live stream. Please put it in here because we do read.
But I will say, before you put it in there, click the link at the top, go to Crushing Crisis, do a Control F through the whole list of 600 plus books. A lot of times you can't find New Superman because it's under Superman, New Superman. So we definitely want to know if we truly missed something, but I'm telling you from past data analysis experience, the majority of people who think we missed something, it's actually on the poll. Do not miss voting for your favorite book.
In what year did you start collecting comics? This is, of course, optional, but we really appreciate it. You know who else appreciates it? DC Comics and Marvel Comics. So thank you all for that because we do share that information with them. Not your name or your email, I swear. You're not going to get that. How many Omnis do you own and how many DC Omnis do you own? Hit submit. Bob's your uncle. Call it a day. That is it. That's how you vote. I'm going to keep this up. And you know what? I'm just going to jump into my interview here in a second. But I want to keep the stream going. So go ahead and refresh this video.
Here we go.
There you will have the link to
Command R, babies.
To vote. Yes, my love.
I love you.
Oh,
And while you're reloading, maybe like hit the like button.
Oh, come here.
That's
Give me a
the
kiss.
thing you could do.
Oh, yeah. Please hit the like button. Please. Thank you. My wife is going to Kempo, and I don't have any time to eat, so I'll just jump into the.
No,
It's fine. I can eat afterwards.
I
I'm doing this live right now, baby. Go on. Go on. I love you. I love you. I don't have time to eat.
Yes, you do.
I'm going to take care of this. I love you. I love you. I promise. I will eat later.
It's in the microwave.
Okay. Thank you.
I haven't even brushed my teeth yet.
Look at that. Isis hasn't even brushed his teeth yet. See?
It's not live. You can't, no smell-o-vision on the poll this year because
Smell-o-vision.
the hair and makeup team was here at 4:45 this morning.
Or if you're gonna do it, sing the "My Shiny Teeth and Me" from Fairly Odd Parents while you do it. So it's either way.
They're still pretty shiny. It's still me.
And I see people are already voting, so I will be sharing the current status. And we're going to keep this going for about 10 more minutes.
Actually, I'll put it in the fridge because I don't know how long you're going to put it. Yep, in the fridge.
Okay. Okay, baby. Thank you so much.
You
I
put
love
that
you.
stupid song in my head earlier, Peter. I couldn't help but like hum it as you were doing the thing.
I know. Imagine if we got it to fit in the Animaniacs country song and we sang the omnibus.
Wait, we'll find a way. Maybe next year.
Yeah. Tom and I are always looking for a project.
Out of curiosity, what are you all voting for? What would be like your number one? I don't know if you do videos on this, so you can keep it for that. But like, give me an idea of what you would make on your top 10. Tigereyes, you don't have a YouTube channel.
I do not.
Nor you're a very private person, but do you mind sharing what you would vote for? Like, say, like your top 5. I know you already thought about this.
Yeah.
Not Swamp Thing, nor
Sandman. Legion Lost or Legion by Abnett and Lanning would probably be on there. Hawk World. I like that series a lot. Probably, you know what else you're gonna this is where I get dropped. I've never read Man of Steel either.
You haven't read the classic stuff, okay?
No.
Well, DC wasn't great at collecting it for a long time. There's tons of stuff I haven't read Tigereyes because like how? Where?
Yeah, you're right. Like my DC is 95 to 2003.
Okay.
You know, but
Omar had to process for a second.
Well, I think we're around the same age, so I was like, how did this happen? Did you have a comic book store near you?
of course, I grew up in South Florida.
You don't have to tell me where you grew up. I was just wondering if you had a comic book store near you, because sometimes that's also the case, right?
Yeah, no, but I read when I was in high school was the heavy stuff. And I just try to keep up, as got a 9 to 5, keep up as much as you can.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm reading Titans by Tom Taylor right now. Okay.
Titans by Tom Taylor. And how do you like that?
It's all right.
Okay.
Not blowing me away. Not, toilet paper.
And I just want to see. Let me make sure that I'm looking at this right.
There should be that beautiful interim results cockpit that Pollmaster BFF Nut Jim has built for you.
Yeah, but I'm trying to see how to share that without. Or Dom, could you share that?
Oh, because you
send me
might
the
drop
link,
off.
Actually,
Yeah.
What's that?
you send me the link.
Yeah, of course.
Just make sure it doesn't show any
I'm
email
just trying
addresses,
to-
which
yeah.
if you're on the right one, it doesn't.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to keep from happening.
Crisis, are you planning to do a DC fantasy draft?
So a lot of people saw recently on my channel, I did a
That was
Marvel
fun.
Fantasy Omnibus draft. It was so much fun. It wasn't just pick the 60 books that you want to do for the next year. It was actually follow the exact rule that Marvel follows and try to see if you can figure out the logic problem of putting out the Marvel line of omnibuses the way that Marvel does. I have a lot of research to do it for DC, but I actually want to do it for DC too. I think it would be really, really fun. But first we got to talk about what DC books we want, but first we got to hear from Omar.
But really quick, I just want to say that the poll is due to close on Sunday, May 17th at 9 p.m. is what we usually close it on. So make sure to vote. And James, could you clip that and add it to the short, please? I don't know why I forgot to say. Oh, I know, because I have 1,000 things in my head.
You're busy getting a kiss from Melanie.
That's great. I can't believe she kissed
And
me.
you'll wait real quick. You only want the graph, right?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
want
just show
the
Yeah,
link.
yeah, I got you. I'm
Yeah,
about to share my
please.
screen in a minute.
I wouldn't
Please.
show that other part. No.
Yeah.
I got you. Oh God.
I think the graph speaks numbers, and it's really hard to tell how many people are actually voting right now because it, as you all know, when people start voting at the beginning, it runs really slow and there's a lot of lag on this end, but the graph will show you kind of a play-by-play.
And you
But
do not have to rush the vote. I mean, it's fun to see the early votes coming in, but you have to remember the people who are voting already are people who already knew what they wanted to vote for, regardless of what we were going to say for 4 hours.
And
unlike Marvel, I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that from every single point in the DC universe, both in continuity and out of continuity, that people will want. So the results, I mean, I assume that the top 20 are probably going to stay the same, but man, there are a lot of books that you could make an argument for as to this is why I want it as number one, whether you're a Batman fan, whether you're an Elseworlds fan, if you're a guy just like Vertigo. Like there are a lot of books to choose from.
And I just want to remind people that it takes a lot of work to put this together. And Crisis has been really humble about how much time you've spent on this. But it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. I just want to thank everybody that helped out, people that aren't here and the people that are here right now. And we did it on crunch time. I can't believe we went through that whole slide. Normally this would have been taken up probably about 4.5 hours, but we were able to do it today. Now the results, I'll warn you ahead, that might be a long show when there's only 60, but we got so many characters in there and just so much to talk about. And we hope to be doing the same thing. I mean, we'll be doing, of course, the DC Finest after this and doing maybe another publisher, but more on that later. Let's get through DC first. And it's a lot of fun to put all this together. And go and check out everybody's channel. Go and check out Crushing Crisis. Tigereyes, if you had a website, although there might be a tigereyes.com, I don't know what's in there. I don't want to.
On risk.
I don't know what's in tigereyes.com. It could be something awful. And I'm not telling anybody to go there, just in case. And
very briefly, I have to say Firestorm is currently the #1 book on the poll right now.
I saw that. But
enjoy it while it lasts.
But keep it. Yeah, I know. Keep in mind, we're only at 26 votes, and oh my gosh, it's anything goes right now. Because I could read you the top 10 right now, and it's Firestorm, Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. Never mind, Swamp Thing got knocked down. It's Firestorm, Batman Legends of the Dark. Never mind. Now people are coming.
You gotta go the Animaniacs country route, Omar. You can't just listen. You gotta go one by one.
Firestorm, Wonder Woman by William Messer Loves. Good on you. Legend of the Dark Knight, Wildstorm, Gen 13. Yeah, right. Batgirl, Cassandra Cain coming in at number 5. What the heck?
Stephanie Brown.
Well, we got it in finest now.
Now, Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, Batman Post-Crisis on Infinite Earths Omnibus, Demon Etrigan Post-Crisis, Batman the Animated Series. Those are your top 10. But again, we are looking at only 34 votes. More votes are coming in, and oh my gosh, it's going to get nuts in here. Seriously. Long live the Legion. I think the Legion is in the top 31 right now. Never mind, it got bumped to 34. But it's really cool to see this come in now, and then what it will turn out to be, because as you all know, this thing gets shared, and we remind people to vote. So yes, go and tell everybody to vote. Again, please don't try to create another account and vote more than one time.
We will find you quicker than Deadshot finds people in Suicide Squad. Okay,
we're not killing anybody though. We're not just please don't do that. That's it. How's Kyle Rayner doing? I was about to make a joke, but I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, he's about to get broken up again.
It is not in the top 60 so far, so not that well. Hal Jordan's in there. Hawk World is in there. Nightwing.
Hawk World did really well last year.
You want to get nuts?
No Checkmate.
I don't see Checkmate either by Greg Rucka.
I'm gonna have to think long and hard about this, because there are at least 70 books here that I do want in omnibus.
Yeah, I know. When people are like, we should have more than 10 votes. I'm with you. We should. But guess what? That would be I don't know if that's a true poll at that time. You have 70 votes.
I mean, I would love to just rank all 600 and whatever of them in order.
That's what I want to do.
Let's do a 24-hour live stream. And,
yes. Yes.
I'm crazy enough to do it.
70 votes, baby.
I've been asking for a 24-hour live stream for years.
Okay,
I don't think you got it in you.
Here's an idea. Are you questioning my
questioning
libido?
if you could hang for 24 hours.
Dude, I got this. All I need is some orange juice. 2 glasses of orange juice. I got this. Listen. Here's what we do. We do it 24 hours. We kick it off on Near Mint Condition. We go to your channel. Then we could go to Don's channel. And we can just keep going for, I don't know. I don't even know.
Okay. That works for me. Make it a charity stream.
A charity stream. Yes. That's it. What's up, Omnipo? How is Australia doing? Welcome to the land of the living, my friend. New Zealand's already been up. New Zealand's been up for hours. What's up? Where you been, man? You've been sleeping in. We got one more minute before I have to end the stream, everybody. And then if you want to keep listening to me, I will be interviewing both Heath Corson and Sue Lee. They are working together with Nathan Fillion, one of my favorite people on the planet from Firefly and Castle fame, on a new book called Witness Point. So I'll be interviewing them at 6 p.m. I ain't got time to eat.
Also, do not post this on an Alf Reddit.
Alf is
Alf is Marvel. You know what? You're right.
No. It was the Bionicle Reddit.
Dude. I'm gonna tell you, man. I grew up with Bionicle, collecting Bionicle, and oh my gosh, we have nostalgic fans in amongst our legion, in the thousands of thousands.
Oh, crazy!
Dude, we need our Kohatu comics. Where else are we going to get it? I understand the pain.
I would say if you want it, we want you to share this, and the watchword is, and this is the way I think Tigereyes, you've always thought about it, is only have people vote if they really buy omnibuses. It doesn't, you don't win any special fan points by sending it to the Red Hood Reddit and have everybody vote Red Hood #1 if they don't have omnibuses, or if they don't at least want omnibuses, right? Somebody who really is a big Bob Hope fan might not have a current omnibus, but they bought every Bob Hope thing that have ever been printed, and so they would vote for it. That's really what I always like to point out. It's fine to share it around, but it's not about having things win just to win, because actually something really damaging that could happen is something does really well in the poll, and then DC takes a chance on it, even even though it's obscure, and then it doesn't sell because the people who vote for it don't really buy omnibuses.
Right.
So no matter who you share it with, share it wide, share it to friends, share it to family, share it to your internet friends, but just make sure they're people who love DC Omnibus collections.
Well said.
And on that note, I do have to wrap up. I hate to leave these people. And I just want to stress again just how much work goes into this, and the behind the scenes is everybody that helped out. Thank you all so much. But before I go, where can people find you, Crisis, when you're not hanging out with me?
I'm Crisis with a K throughout the comic-loving internet. You can find my website, crushingcrisis.com, which is linked from the poll because that's where you can read all the tools all on one screen at once. I have my own channel, Crushing Crisis, where on this Sunday or Monday, if you're in New Zealand or Australia, I'll be going over my ballot for this poll and what books I would be picking. So join me then and see what I think of these books.
And Dom of X, where can people find you, buddy?
You can find me on this specific channel where I will be back soon, but you can also check me out on my own channel where I will be doing this voting round with my good friend Cody Collects, and I might take a page out of Peter's book because honestly, his ideas are rad. And yes, please vote for the bookies. And thank you for having me to talk about the DC books in depth and detail.
And Tigereyes, where can people find you?
After results video.
That's right.
Okay, the results video, which is Wednesday, May 27th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's when we are doing the results. Keep your night open, baby, because we're going to go a long time, especially with Lars on that video, just talking about maybe one book of Legion of Superheroes. I am the Uncanny Omar. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button on the way out. Show these people some love. And as of right now, I'm out of here, but I will be back on Near Mint Condition in 2 minutes. Bye-bye.